Welcome everyone. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Alright, if I could have a motion to approve the agenda for the business meeting tonight of August 19th, 2024.
Eric and Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Now move this to open forum. The Greenville Central School District wishes to facilitate public access to the meetings of the Board of Education and to provide an opportunity for the public comment at these meetings. Accordingly, the open forum provides an opportunity for members of the public to share thoughts about the topics on the agenda. An individual's comments shall be limited to 5 minutes. Additionally, comments may be emailed to the district clerk, Daphne Pearson, using the email pearsond@greenvillecsd.org. In order for an email to be read during the meeting, it must be received by 4 p.m. on the day of the meeting and state that the email is to be read out loud. Emails shall be limited to 600 words. Please note that this is not the time to register complaints that need to be addressed confidentially through the proper channels. Remarks that might be considered defamatory, obscene, profane, stigmatizing, or otherwise impermissible in public forums are prohibited and will be declared out of order. Board members actively listen during open forum but may not immediately respond to comments. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Okay, I know we have an email. Daphne, if you could read it, please.
Yep, we have one email from Janelle Booty, lawsuit concerning Title IX changes in your district. Hello, I am writing to inform you of the current lawsuit and injunction concerning the August 1st, 2024 Title IX changes. Your district has been listed in the suit and should begin to monitor its progress before proceeding with any changes. Moms for Liberty's historic federal lawsuit against the Department of Education challenging the Biden administration's rewrite of Title IX regulations led to a federal district court issuing a landmark preliminary injunction prohibiting the DOE from enforcing these changes in several states and at the schools attended by the children of members of Moms for Liberty. It is important to understand that this injunction is preliminary in nature, meaning that unless an appellate court rules differently in the future, it will remain in effect until the district court can fully hear the case. It is currently under appeal. This Title IX litigation will likely continue for many months because challenges will continue to be filed and then appealed through the legal system by both parties on both sides of the fight. Ultimately, the issues surrounding the Biden administration's Title IX rewrite, which is blatantly unconstitutional and unlawful, will most likely be decided by the United States Supreme Court sometime next year. Attached, you will find documentation as well as a frequently asked questions document and example board resolution. Also, please read this email at the next board meeting aloud. Thank you for your attention to this matter, Janelle Bucci.
All right, then I'm going to move us on to the public hearing. And it's for the district-wide school safety plan public hearing. And Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, this was presented at our last board meeting for folks put out there. So if there's any comments at this point for the public hearing on our safety documents, please let us know.
All right, we have a couple of presentations then. The first one is for the end of the year data report, the BCIP, the building and the DCIP, so the district level as well as the building level reports. So come on down, and we've got a team presenting, and while they set up, the links for the presentations are on board docs in case anyone needs them, as well as we have hard copies. Welcome, everyone. Take it away.
So thank you for having us here to provide an update on the continuous school improvement work that took place over the 23-24 school year. So what we'll do tonight is review some data that we use for measuring success. We will keep the same format this evening that we typically use. I'll start with a quick review of our improvement calendar, district goals, and the importance of multiple measures. And then we're going to go move through for highlights of each of the 3 district goals from the past year, and then review some data points that are connected to those. Toward the end of the presentation, we're going to shift our sight towards the 24-25 school year, and we will present the goals and strategies that we will be working on to help us get to where we want to be. With each section of the presentation, we can answer questions. We'll also have time at the end of the presentation for questions as well. So board members, you have received a hard copy of some documents, just a reminder of what you've got there. Building profiles for what we call the June end of the year data profiles for elementary school, middle school, and high school, as well as evidence completion documents for the DSIP and the building plans. What those contain is a lot more drilled down data than we're going to go over tonight. Tonight's going to be kind of a broad brush, but sometimes you ask questions like, have we seen something by cohort, or do we have something that looks more into this? Most times the answer is, yeah, it's in that packet. So we try to be thorough, and we pull together as much as we can, and we use that information for our school improvement planning for the following year. So speaking of that process and that calendar, we are now in the calendar for the 24-25 school year, and what we want to do is we want to reflect on the 23-24 school year, and then start outlining the things we're going to do to improve for the 24-25 school year. So our teams in July looked at this information, came together, building leadership teams, administrators, some parent members, teachers, even a student this year, and we really looked at this information that we're going to be going over tonight, and that helped improve our plans about where do we want to be and how are we going to get there. Just a quick review, looking in the rearview mirror about what were our priorities and strategies that we were focused on during the 23-24 school year. So the big buckets in curriculum, we call our goal 1. We were working on building staff capacity for analyzing data related to student work. We were also working to continue our continuous program review process. For goal 2, culture, we were using our system of RTI and multi-tiered supports to promote positive behavior across all tiers of students. And then goal 3, community, we were focused on communication, and specifically at the district level, we were focused on supporting parents in the rollout of the new Synergy Parent View system. With those goals in mind, for goal 1, the curriculum, we wanted to pull together some highlights, some things that stood out over the course of the year that we worked on. Christy and I will run through and give some of those this evening. I'd like to start out in the curriculum bucket, talking about we've made some progress in mapping this year, especially in the core areas of ELA, math, science, and social studies. We're at 100% for developed or well-developed maps for the elementary school and the middle school. We're at 86% at the high school, so coming along nicely there. I'd like to point out the hard work that the teachers have put in, especially in ELA and math, moving towards actually the development of pacing calendars. Right? So you got the map, and you go even further where you actually can see week by week, month by month, the specific points they're working on. So very valuable in terms of growing our work and helping a team be cohesive and having vertical and horizontal alignment. We're still in need of some work for the departments that have many courses, many classes, like CTE, art, and music. So There's still some work to be done in those departments. And not that those teachers haven't been working hard on it, it's just sometimes you have one teacher that teaches 7 or 8 different classes over 2 or 3 years, and that's a lot to keep up with. Our continuous review process, so 2/3 of the departments have now participated in the review process, and some excellent work has come out of these meetings. So after learning about what departments wanted to prioritize, we were able to do some pretty exciting things, including lining up some PD for the high school science department on new standards and new assessments, doing some work on the mathematics computer science sequence, the evolution of that sequence, and some work with the English department, grades 6 through 12, and focusing on writing and data analysis and vertical alignment. I'd like to highlight the work of our instructional coaches as we have in the past. They've continued to contribute towards professional growth of all the teachers and professionals in this district. Some focus items for this year was rolling out oral reading fluency assessments, training the teachers how to do those assessments, how to analyze, and then working with the reading teachers about how to use those to make decisions about groupings of students. In addition to that, mathematics coaches in particular doing a lot of work with getting our students ready and our teachers ready for preparing our students for computer-based testing, which is being rolled out by the state, and we're having to pick that up. So a lot of work in the classrooms went into that with our coaches. Additionally, I'd like to point out the work that went in. This is with our coaches and all of our teachers, teacher leaders, and administrators. The work that went into standards-based grading at the elementary school, and the amount of alignment of assessments to the curriculum, making sure they're giving assessments at the right time, looking at those assessments to really understand who is demonstrating grade level proficiency, and then what do they need to continue to grow. I've mentioned before that this is stuff that's only aspirational for many school districts, and our teachers here are doing that, and I really want to celebrate the work that they're doing. And just some other pieces of professional learning. We had a very, very successful, almost a year-long professional learning session on building thinking in mathematics classrooms K through 12. We had people that participated in that training who weren't even mathematics teachers, who were taking those instructional strategies and moving them into their classrooms. In addition, we did 2 new things this year. One was training for our aides on de-escalation. That was the November Superintendent's Conference Day. In addition to that, in March, we did another training specifically for them on supporting learners in small group instruction and working with students one-on-one, and how to work with students that need extra support. Those are new pieces. Anything you'd like to add, Christy?
You have rural schools. Can I move on? Okay, so I'll talk about the next 2 bullets that are up there. So our rural schools project, that's our partnership with NCERN, and that's the National Center for Rural Education Research Networks, and it's part of Harvard University. So our focus for the past 2 years has been the post-secondary checklists, which included the 2-year, 4-year military and direct workforce/apprenticeship. Prior to this apprenticeship, or prior to this, thanks, Rich. Prior to our partnership with NCERN, Greenville did have a post-secondary timeline, but it just wasn't in checklist form, but it was utilized in both junior and senior seminar classes. But during our partnership with NCERN, we were able to improve our timeline, add a few things, add a few items to those the timelines that we were missing, and we actually turn these timelines into actual checklists. So students actually have to go through using a program, and they actually have to check mark what they've completed. So I think that's been very helpful for us. We've also been able to meet with our other rural school districts within New York State and as well as Ohio, and we were able to share best practices. One of the things that we learned by sharing these best practices were a lot of other school districts have been sharing out their checklists with parents and family members, not just with students. So that's what we started about a year and a half ago. We did it consistently throughout this school year as well. And in the fall, we hope to meet again, or we will meet again with NCUR to discuss what our next steps will be. Okay, so then the pathways, the CTE pathways. So we've had pathways for the past couple years now. We continue to create more academic opportunities for students at the high school level. And our pathways provide students with the opportunity to get a jump start on careers that they might be interested in. And they can learn real-world skills, the qualifications needed for these jobs through these CTE pathways. So as a reminder, our current CTE pathways, we've had ag first, agriculture, then we had technology. This past year was our first year for the FACS pathway, and we're in the process of getting the business pathway approved. All of our pathways have specific programs of study. For example, the business pathway, the program of study is business management and entrepreneurship. All pathways also end in a technical assessment. The one for the business pathway, much like the others, it's a three-part assessment. It's a written portion, a performance portion, and then there's a portfolio. And students can just leave after completing a pathway, and they have a portfolio of different skills and concepts that they learn, and they can bring that to wherever they go next, career, or if they go to internship, or if they continue to go to college. Within these pathways as well too, there's required courses that students have to take. The junior and senior seminar is one of those required courses. All of our students have to take it anyways, so we did make it part of the pathway. And then there's some courses where students can select which they want to take in order to complete that pathway as well. Specific to the business pathway, when students complete the business pathway, they will have one credit one college credit, and it's through SUNY Cobleskill, but it's easily transferable to any of the other SUNY colleges as well as many other colleges as well. Also, additional classes may always be added to these pathways. It's just something that we have to go back and amend with the initial paperwork that we filed with New York State Education Department.
All right, so having given a broad update on highlights from the curriculum, we'd now like to take a look at some data points. So this information is all in your packets and your data profiles. And you'll also find some more detailed information on cohorts and year-over-year progress in those packets. So this slide here is a comparison to national and state norms for iReady reading. You can see on the right how our district performed. That's grades 2 through 8. Keep in mind, New York State and national, many schools give this assessment K through 8. So there's a little bit of a difference in how their cohorts are formed. Overall, when looking at this, we notice we have a larger percent of students who are one grade level below. It's a big bucket. We've seen that before for a number of years now. We've been looking at that bucket, certainly during the time that I've been here. And these are the students who are continuing to focus on moving towards proficiency. Zooming in a bit, we look at movement within the school year. And at this level, we're looking to see how our students are moving in comparison to where they started, and then where we hope for them to be by the end of the year. One report that we look at when examining data is this 3-level placement report. So the report breaks down our students into 3 levels: on grade level, 1 grade level below, or 2 or more grade levels below. And it's represented in a triangle. So what we see here are 2 triangles representing all Greenville students from grades 2 to 8 in reading in September 2023 and then in June 2024. So looking at this, we notice that Ellis doubled the percentage of students reading on or above grade level over the course of the year, while decreasing the number of students 2 or more grade levels below. And also sticking out that we noticed was, overall as a district, after the first diagnostic we had 41% of students that were at risk for Tier 3 as identified by iReady. And at the end of the year, we had 28% of students at risk for Tier 3 as identified by iReady. So iReady, as we've continued to work with them and understand their data systems, they've been teaching us and stressing the importance of looking at not only the proficiency numbers, but growth data as well. And this is one view that they have been making a point to come back to every time we have our discussions. So this is specific to this school year. This is progress to annual typical growth. So in order to get this number, if you take all the students who took the test twice over the course of the year, you put them in order, the middle students' percent progress is this number, the median percent progress. So the target is always 100%. You want that median percent progress for that student to be 100%. And so we've met that target for reading at the elementary school and middle school levels this year. And I've broken this out to give a little bit of a historical perspective. We can see how that dark line in the center, that's 100, that's the target each year. And this is where Ellis has struck each of the past 4 years on that median progress towards annual typical growth. And here's our middle school's progress towards annual typical growth. Again, that 100 being the target the target each year.
Matt, on this one, a couple of things jump out. For the 2021, where the target growth was 153, and then in 22-23, where in the middle school it was 86. Do you know what was driving those kind of different ways?
Yeah, when we looked at the number, I remember back in 2020, 2021, we were wondering a lot about, wow, that's so high this year, and we had a couple of hypotheses about why that might be. One might be that, upon students returning from the 1920 school year, there were gaps, they caught up on the gaps.
Okay.
Then there was another thought that we had about this, and actually Melissa and I just had this conversation last week as we were going over this. We were wondering if perhaps at that time when we still had many students on hybrid, more students were completing iReady learning activities in the portal, which are, right now we essentially give the diagnostic assessment. We had more students than using that as a teaching tool where that was being used in place of instruction in a classroom, right? Or a substitute of. So that, those are two hypotheses that we talked about last week, possibilities.
Follow-up question. When you say that, if I heard correctly, I think the iReady may have been used as in place of instruction in the classroom. Can you elaborate on that? What?
Yeah. So, speaking specifically towards that school year, it's prior to my time, but I believe we had students that were being assigned that as work at home. They're attending virtual classes, right? So, iReady does have a portal where you can go in and assign assignments, and that can be the instruction for that student. We do use that in some of our labs, but I think overall, we like to think that teaching can be more dynamic than a student being on a laptop with headphones for a couple hours a week.
So was that just limited to the remote, when classes were remote, or is it still periodically used in civic instruction?
It's something that's used in some labs. It's something that's used by some classroom teachers for in-class, like tier 2 intervention pieces for some students. But it's not being used tier 1 instruction piece like I think it was in the emergency situation that we were in COVID.
If it's used for tier 2, I don't want to get too much into the weeds. There's just one more question. But if it's used for in lieu of instruction for the tier 2 intervention, is that would it be wrong to think of it as kind of teaching the test? Like if you're learning how to get through iReady better, but you're not necessarily learning the substance, or is it that actually reflects some learning even though you're using iReady in lieu of instruction?
That's a really good question, and I think educators have been debating that sort of thing for some time, not just about iReady, but for all computer-based testing, or when you progress monitor, and more exposure to that test and how it's given online and the formatting of it and the feedback that program gives you. Does that give you an advantage when you sit down to do a diagnostic then? So that's also another kind of thought that's come to mind over the years as we look at our data. Yeah. This is a new view that I wanted to pull in, and the reason why I'm pulling it in is because we've had this conversation a couple of times over the past year or so where we've talked about the amount of time that students are taking to complete the iReady assessment, and we've had situations where we've had students who've talked to their parents, teachers who've talked to admin, and so on and so forth about, man, this test is really long, right? And so I sat down with iReady and I said, we'd like to start measuring how long this is really taking for our students. Are the things that we're hearing, is it anecdotal? What is it as a whole? So we broke this down, and just looking at this for the first time, we broke it down into a few different buckets. So we can see in the pie chart on the left, those are the ELIS students on the ELA iReady for spring. And breaking it down, you can see that a third of elementary students are taking more than 60 minutes to complete their iReady. And that the median duration of the test is 44 minutes. Now, iReady recommends in grades K and 1, 40 to 60 minutes total per subject, and in grades 2 to 5, 80 to 100 minutes total per subject. So we're using a large amount of time on the test, but it's not too far off of what iReady has said is an expected duration of the test.
Matt, could you just repeat those numbers?
Yeah.
Please.
So grade K and 1, 40 to 60 minutes total per subject. Grades 2 and 5, 80 to 100 minutes total per subject. Now moving over to the middle school, which is the pie graph we see over on the right, the median duration is a little bit longer. Those students took 54 minutes, or the median student testing there was 54 minutes. We have nearly 40% of the middle school students taking more than 60 minutes on the assessment. In grades 6 through 8, the expectation from iReady is that it would take 80 to 100 minutes total per subject.
Are these the tests that take longer the better you do on them?
They, not necessarily longer the better you do, but they are, they adjust to your level as you go, right? So they've got to zero in to try and arrive at your instructional level. So they might go, they might push you along and then drop you down to try to find where that midpoint is, or if you keep on getting things wrong, they're going to keep dropping you down until they find the spot for it.
And a similar question: did you correlate length of time spent on the test with the score?
I didn't have time to do that, but I did ask iReady to do that, and they had said they were going to do that for me. So I'm interested in getting that, and I'll be interested to share that with you when I have it, because that's a really great question, and that's where my mind was going with it as well.
Okay.
It's Matt, if I'm reading or understanding correctly, if you're saying, let's say, 6 through 8, iReady is saying a student should take anywhere between 80 to 100 minutes. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah. Yeah.
So then our students are taking less than that. So like there are different
Yeah.
ways of looking at it.
Yep. Yeah, median duration is 54 minutes. Our students are taking, our median duration is 54. iReady is saying that it should take 80 to 100 minutes total per subject. Yeah. Well, there are numbers up there. There are some students taking significantly more than 60. They're outliers.
Right.
But
Because I wonder would it be more helpful to get the pie chart for iReady to say, here are the 3 quadrants, the percentages, and then index ours to theirs. So, I'm making up numbers, but let's say if iReady has 21.6% that take less than 40 minutes, then we're indexing at 100. So is that a better way than just to take the median? 'Cause when I look at this, my first thought for the middle school, my first thought is we have slow readers. So then do we need to work on fluency? That would be like my first thought in looking at the pie chart. But now you're telling me that iReady expects them to take 80 to 100, so that's good. So is some other dynamic happening in that we do have slow readers and maybe they're giving up, so then they're bumping down? Like, there's something going on, so that I was curious about.
Thank you for the thoughts and suggestions. This is a first stab at looking at this data, So I would like for it to become more nuanced as time goes on, because I think there's interest in understanding how long it's taking for our students to take a test that's supposed to be a screener. The definition of a screener is supposed to be a short assessment. So we are devoting a significant amount of time to assessing students. And as it looks right now, we're not even hitting where iReady is thinking it should take in total amounts of time to assess students, and we're feeling that it's quite a bit. So this is something for us to pay attention to. I feel we're hearing voices of students, we've heard voices of parents and teachers as well. So I think it's time to monitor and pay attention to this.
Matt, to go along with what Tracy was mentioning, you look at the middle. I'm concerned about testing time as well. You look at the middle school duration time. She was worried about the top end, but if you have almost 22% of the kids doing the test in less than 40 minutes, if Tracy's concerned about the kids racing through, I would think that 22% of them are, or they're getting to the point where they're frustrated and just can't do it.
I think that's a good wondering.
But Matt, thank you for asking the questions, we appreciate it.
Yep. We like to pull this table up and take a look at this. This is our iReady and ESGI phonics data, broken down by grade, starting in June of 2021. All the way over on the left, you see June of 2021, and these are assessments for kindergarten, lowercase letter sounds, phoneme blending, and then the phonics score for iReady, grade 1, grade 2, 3, 4, and 5. So you're going to see scores from June 21, 22, 23, and 24, as well as the target that we had set for ourselves in June 2024. I noticed at most grade levels we met or surpassed our targets, but really if you compare to where we were in June of 2021, this data suggests that we've continued to make progress in our phonics proficiency, especially as our students, as our students build year after year, and our teachers become better and better with our really great reading instructional program. Move down into some more of those kind of early education foundational skills. This is data from our ESGI testing, and up on the top there, in the little fainter, is data from kindergarten in the winter, and on the bottom is data from kindergarten in the spring. So we're looking at upper and lowercase letter identification, and then lowercase letter sounds fluency. So the goal is for 100% of these students, or for the 100% of the answers to be correct on these assessments. So if you look at our results from winter to spring, you'll see that letter ID for this group of kindergartners increased from 87% given the correct answer to 96%. And then the lowercase letter sounds have increased 20% from the winter to the spring, from 70 to 90. Move over into iReady Mathematics. As we saw with English Language Arts, this slide shows a comparison between our district and national and state norms. We notice that we have 17% of students in the high-risk category, so 2 to 3 grade levels below, which is slightly below the current nation and the state norms. And again, as we saw with the reading, we have that large group of students that are 1 grade level below. And that is, to us, a group of students that we feel should be reading on grade level or above grade level. If they're that close, should be able to get them there. Or, excuse me, mathematics. My mind's stuck on reading. Here's that within year comparison view that we also saw for reading. So here's that view for mathematics, 3-tier model. And we can see Ellis in the middle school broken out again at the bottom. Ellis moving from 5% of students for tier 1 grade level up to 27, and the middle school going from 5 beginning up to 11. As we saw student growth with the reading kind of year over year, we almost consistently hit that 100% mark. We've had greater challenges with the math. This year was not different. The median progress to annual typical growth at Ellis was 89%, and at the middle school it was 74%. Here's a view showing what that looks like historically. (2020, 2021) being a high point again, and then right around 90 for the other years. And here we are at the middle school. For the last 2 years, we haven't been able to hit that 100 target, whereas the previous 2 years we were able to.
Can you speculate as to why?
I could sit here for a very long time speculating as to why.
So, maybe not for a long time, but what do you collectively think the most likely reasons are?
I mean, I could say just a couple. I mean, I think one of the things is we is a computer. We're changing over to that, and I think we're going to start pushing that more. But are we giving students? I mean, again, just hypothesizing here. Are we giving students enough time to actually work out problems at times on a computer versus on paper? Now they get scrap paper, but when the computer's in front of them, many kids just ignore the scrap paper then. So there's some little things like that you're like, oh, that shouldn't that big of a deal, but I think at times it can be. We continue to talk, when I talk to my teams about just student motivation and the amount of testing. I mean, my 8th graders in particular get slammed in the spring between the 2 I-readies and 3 state assessments with math, ELA, and science, and the math, ELA, and science state ones all have to be done within 6 weeks. So, you know, it's just, there's a lot of it, and you can see it. So those are just a couple things. You know, whether is it measurable, can you figure that out exactly? But, you know, we see kids at times rush on that already. You know, you go back to that chart there. I mean, definitely on the math, they're spending more time. Is that sometimes just trying to figure out the tools a little bit on that already? So those are a couple of things. But, you know, I think it's, again, going back to, you know, looking at some of the stuff that when we talk with our teachers about some of our students also. You know, again, so again, are we practicing to that test, as you're saying before, of giving them more time on computers to do things? It might be something that we have to integrate a little bit more into our daily instruction of just at least getting this, because the state is pushing that. I mean, we're phasing it out, elementary and middle school, of using any paper-based tests for the state tests. So next year, another grade level will be added to using all computer-based. And then the following year, that's it. So that has to be something we have to start thinking about too, is, again, making sure they have the skills to do that math on those computers.
I think also at the basis of any time you're looking at numbers that aren't what you'd like them to be, you've got to look back at student engagement, right? And how academically engaged are the students in the classroom. What are the things we're doing to keep them engaged over the course of the school year? You know, Mr. Reeve has talked about, you know, the social emotional challenges that we have for some of our students, and making sure that we're meeting those needs before we can move on to academic pieces for them. You know, this is complex work, and it's hard to isolate any one thing. I think some of the pieces that we'll talk about later in the presentation, as we talk about, you know, what do we want to do to improve, to move forward, are things that we feel will contribute to more growth on data points such as this.
Thanks. One other question, actually, it's going back a couple slides to the iReady math and I guess reading end of year charts that you showed. I'm sure we've seen this in the past and I don't recall offhand, but if we're looking at, for example, the math end of year, we can see for middle school and elementary school what, say, Tier 1 was in June 24. Do you know how that compares to a few years ago? In other words, is there a trend over time from 2 or 3, 4, even 5 years ago where you can see either that Tier 1 group staying around the same volume, or is it increasing or decreasing? How's it changing over time for math and reading? Do you know offhand?
In this view, I do not have that, how it's changing over time. You will see inside your data profiles, there's a slide that says, how has this data changed from spring to spring? You can see those numbers on there. Really from overall, and this is a 2 through 8 view, so it's very large and zoomed out. It's generally pretty flat, where we see movement, a couple of numbers here and there, movement amongst the levels, but overall you're seeing a kind of consistent percentage of students at the reading at or above level, or the consistent of students far below.
Okay.
Before you go, I have one last question. I'm a geek, so data's fun. I'm curious as to whether or not that this might be somewhat cohort-driven too, in terms of size of the cohort, because you're talking about changes that are happening within a cohort in terms of growth and so forth. So if you had a small class, you could have an anomaly where a few students can make a bigger change. So I don't know how easy it is to go back and look at it and see if the cohort's size was also driving this.
That's a really great question and a really great idea. Another thing, as we look at this and we try to look at what's driving this, we've noticed there are different subgroups, and I won't speak to all of them because some of them are very small, and I don't want to highlight a subgroup of students that are in the middle school, but there are certain subgroups of students that make really great progress, and there's other subgroups of students that don't make as great progress. And we started breaking the information down like that to get a better understanding of it. So the thought of just data sets and how that affects year to year is definitely something to consider.
Right, because I know some classes have been as big as 110, 120, and then some as small as 67.
And when you're talking about a few percentage points with 120 students versus a few percentage points of 67 students, it's all relative. This is the, I'm trying to remember, did I do this? I didn't do this already, did I? No? Okay, for math, okay. So this is the assessment time for minutes to complete iReady Math. So a little longer than the ELA. The durations, the recommended durations from iReady are the same as for ELA. So the median duration at the elementary school, median students taking 51 minutes to take this test. At the middle school, that student is taking 61 minutes to take this test. More than a third of elementary students are taking more than 60 minutes to complete the test, and half of middle school students are taking more than 60 minutes to complete the test.
I have a question.
Yeah.
With that, as far as time-wise, do you also correspond students that are taking more than 60 minutes for a test, are they performing better, higher scores compared to the students taking less time?
We don't have that information right now. I did ask iReady for it, hoping that they come through and deliver that, because that was one of the things that I wanted to see. It's beyond my, what I have the capacity to do in terms of time, and so they have a department that does these things, right? We pay them to do it. So I've asked them, and once I get the information, I'd be really interested in seeing it, and I'll definitely share it.
Thank you.
And Matt, along with Jim's question, I think parsing this data out per grade level might indicate some trends too, in the sense that, first of all, I hope that a second grader or third grader is not expected to take the same amount of time, or iReady visions that they should be spending the same amount of time on testing as a fifth or sixth grader. But if we could see that the younger kids, the primary kids, are spending more time, the appropriate time of the allotted amount, testing or taking the test seriously compared to the older kids, might see where actually it's dropping off, the participation, interest.
It's a good
If you
thought.
can get that information.
Yeah, being able to see by grade level what the time is and where are we
Or losing.
losing. Yeah. All interesting ideas and thoughts. I know this is a new data point, so to hear your thoughts and where your mind goes with it is interesting. I know mine.
Well, actually, Matt, my thought was earlier, not to cut you off, was that when we talked about this kids that are spending, again, Tracy was interested in the high end, but on the low end of time usage, I'm starting to wonder if don't get upset, if this testing methodology is valid for our analysis of our program.
Yeah, when we've sat down and looked at our data with iReady, there's been a couple of times where they've looked at some data points and said, yeah, we would have reliability questions about this assessment, right? So that's a real concern, especially considering the amount of time that we devote to it and the amount of attention that we give to it, and that we rely on this as information to try and monitor how we're doing. Right? We have a significant amount of resources invested in doing a screener, analyzing a screener, and using it to place students. So we want to make sure that what's happening with our students and the actual taking of the assessment, that's not invalidating everything else that comes after it.
And some of the things you have to remember too is we take a lot of them, we look at grade levels, we'll take those students and talk to teams too and say, you know, the students showing that they're in a grade 5 and they're in 8th grade, what are your thoughts of what you're seeing in the classroom? Usually at times the teacher might be like, yeah, I'm not seeing that in the classroom. You know, so did a kid fatigue? Did they just, you know, give up a little bit or just not feel well to take that day? So it's a tool again we talked about. And I think you also have to think about some of our students who have IEPs and their learning disabilities, right? Many of those students will show growth, although they're still going to show up in that red though of being a grade 2 low. So those are things we have to look at too. You know, a lot of our teachers will break down, like our special ed teachers, like, oh, the student is making growth, they're making progress. Yes, they're not on grade level yet, but those students are all in this iReady data also. We have to think about too, is that they're going to be in that red most likely, but did they show growth? And that's where, you know, yes, granted we didn't hit that 100 on the math. That's where you got to start breaking down some of the students on there and seeing which ones maybe didn't make the growth and break them out a little bit more. So again, it's a tool, but it does help and it does allow us to have good conversation around students, and maybe sometimes it allows us to catch students that maybe we weren't seeing who are struggling.
Moving forward here, looking at some of the foundational math skills. This is kindergarten ESGI math. We've got number identification on the left there from the fall, winter assessment into the spring, and then on the right, oral counting. Our fall to winter data stayed relatively the same percentage-wise. However, in the fall and winter, the students are asked about 11 numbers, and in the spring, it's numbers 11 through 20. So the assessments are a little different. They evolve throughout the course of the school year. So even though the growth doesn't seem there on the number identification, 91% to 90, it's actually, they're being asked to identify more numbers, right? So they can now identify 90% of 11 through, you know, or up to 20, whereas at the beginning of the year they were only being asked to do 0 through 10. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oral counting is the same throughout the year. It's the numbers 1 through 100, and you can see here that from the winter time they went from 58% to 76%, nearly 20%. So looking backwards, the last cohort going out was at 66% for this skill. So this cohort doing even better than last year's kindergarten cohort. Some other math data points we like to touch on. Looking at math fact fluency and reflex math, the tool that we've been using to help students. This is our 3rd year using this program across the school, grades 2 to 5. So we're starting to get some kind of longitudinal data to to see how things are looking. We've made some adjustments this year, how we were teaching the scope and sequence of teaching multiplication in grade 3, so we got a little bit of feedback on how that worked, where we saw a real big jump mid-year in the proficiency of students with multiplication and division in grade 3. To the end of the year here, we ended, our cohort ended at 75% in multiplication division, just about where they ended last year. Other highlights, the grade 2 cohort there, 74% versus 78 last year. Grade 3 addition and subtraction. Last year, the 3rd graders were 85% fluent, and this year that group 89%. The 4th graders in multiplication and division, last year were at 80.7 leaving, this year at 86.4. And lastly, the 5th grade group, last year that cohort was almost 91, and this group this year was leaving at 85.
I have a question. Just looking at the data here, I'm trying to, I'm not sure the best way to ask. So if we look at what I think are building blocks to proficiency in reading and math, like the math fact fluency or the oral counting or phonics, etc., that you've shown, the performance seems to be reasonably good. I think at least say 75% or above, give or take, which again seems like it's reasonably good. But when you look at actual proficiency in reading and math, the numbers are nowhere near close to that. It's more 20 to 25% across the board, reading and math proficient at grade level. And so there's a discrepancy there, and I know it's not one-to-one. I don't want to compare them like apples to apples. But can you explain to me like where that disconnect is? I mean, if you have some of the building blocks, which it looks like students are doing fairly well on, but they're not proficient. So what's happening between the two?
So on something like iReady, which I think you might be alluding to as where we're not seeing levels of proficiency, that's testing all standards in a grade level. So you're testing in one assessment, testing many standards in a digital platform. The ESGI, something like this is an isolated assessment that's done one-on-one with a teacher working with that student. So it's this is also over in about 60 seconds, 60 to 90 seconds by the time they have them do the number identification. That's one task, and then the oral counting, that's another task. So our youngest students here are being tested in a much different environment than, say, a 3rd grader who's taking 60 minutes over 2 or 3 days to do an iReady assessment on all kinds of different standards. So that, in looking at the difference, of these scores in the iReady, that's one piece that stands out to me as being a place to start a conversation. So, still staying in Goal 1 in curriculum and staying on student learning, I'd like to turn it over to Brian and Christy to talk about course failures.
So if you take a look across the course failures here, and this was something that we really dove into this summer in our continuous school improvement workshop, of just look at the failures, because they were definitely up in the 23-24 school year. This is something that we produce quarterly, every 5 weeks. Actually, the intern reports and quarterly, so throughout the year we're constantly looking at these numbers, because we're having discussions, whether it's in team meetings, of what's going on with some of these students. Do we need to encourage them to be after school more, maybe look at some tutoring? We set up parent conferences. So it's an ongoing process. This wasn't just gathered all quarters here at the end of the year. It's throughout the year that we're looking at these to see what we can do for our students throughout the year, and the interventions we made to provide, whether it's something tier 1 in the classroom, a tier 2 lab, or something more explicit with a tier 3. It also allowed us, stuff like this allows us to have discussions around creating students that we recommended for tutoring that just wrapped up here last week in the middle school. And we had good attendance rate at our tutoring this summer, so we were very pleased with that. One of the things to keep in mind with this data also is that this is counting for all our courses. So we have numerous 10-week courses even in the middle school. So if a student failed a 10-week course, whether it's FACS or business or something like that, those would be accounted for in this too. And then there could be a couple students, or one student could represent 2 or 3 quarter failures courses in that number there too. Well, when we did look at it this summer, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit more later here, we started having more discussions around, why? Is it the ability level of some of these students? And reality is we looked at things in a different approach this summer. We're trying to look at more some of our organizational and study skills, and we have prepared our goals to try to address some of the academic needs that way this year, with the hope, because we felt like, some of these failures, when you look at that list, it wasn't that the kids didn't have the ability, but did they know how to prepare themselves to be successful, whether it's completing a classwork assignment or homework or studying for a test. And I'm going to talk a little bit later. So we definitely, this was a data point that we looked at this summer, had some really good discussion around, and shaped one of our goals around too.
Brian, one of the things for this, is it possible to look at it by student? And so if you want to do it just at the end of the Q2, since there are some half-year courses, and then Q4, when I look at this, I always am curious about how many students are we talking about? So,
yeah, that number there at 99, it's a good question. I would say it's maybe 2/3 of that 99 are actual students. Right. So out of 246 that we had, so it could even be less than that, a little bit less, because we definitely have some students that had that we had to come in this summer. So yeah, that's something we can try to maybe going forward with that profile, break it down more that way, and just get it.
I think it is in the building profiles. I know
Okay.
it's at the high school level, it's broken down.
You're
by
right,
the
probably is on
students.
the take back.
Yeah.
So.
So, I heard the 246, and I'm just
Yes.
trying to understand, as far as middle school, do the students take the same number of courses typically? So you say there's...
Yeah, there's a little bit, probably more like an 8th grade, like where there's 4 10-week courses during one period. 5th period is ag, tech, FACS, and health. So they're, but no, they're all pretty much about the same.
So out of the 240, so what would be the number that I would multiply 246 by to get total number of courses for?
Each grade level would be just probably 1 or 2 different. I can figure it out for you here in a second here if you like, but just give me a minute. But.
You can have a couple of days.
Okay. All right.
This is not in a spot.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying.
No, because I'm looking at the 99, and is it 99 out of 1,000, or is it 99 out of 1,500 courses?
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
All right, here's the high school data. So this slide shows the course failures this past school year. As you can see, our overall number of course failures at the end of the Q4 has increased since last year, went from 100 to 162. But the overall number of students failing one or more courses has decreased. So at the end of last school year, we had 66 students failing more than one course. And this year we have 38 students failing more than one course. So Eric, please don't ask me to calculate the number of courses that each student takes, because it is all different.
Yeah, no, I know.
Yeah. And out of those 38 students that have more than 2 failures, 32 of them are underclassmen or 9th and 10th graders. So I felt that this year. That if I looked at the number of course failures and the number of students that I saw for 5 or more referrals, which we'll talk about in a couple more slides, I think that'll be similar. If we talk about some of our chronic absenteeism students, I bet you that number hits very well here. We've spent a lot of RTI meetings. We've spent a lot of, every Monday, I meet with the guidance counselors and some other PPS staff. We spent a lot of time talking about these students that were failing courses. One of the things that I know we can do better as a high school, and we've talked about it during our school improvement, the school improvement workshop days as well too, is it's something I know the math department's going to focus on, is having teachers having those discussions as what are your next steps, like where should you go. I think our counselors do a great job of trying to steer kids in the right direction, but the teacher for that subject area, for example math, like our algebra teacher, she knows who is going to be successful, you know, in geometry, and who should maybe not go region-based, but we have a lot of other math level courses like discovering computer science, where we can get them into a computer science class rather than going on that track. So I know the math department is going to be working really hard on this year, and by December having conversations with the kids. You know, what are your thoughts and plans? Here are all the different courses next year for math that you could take, or for whatever subject you can take. Here is what we would recommend for you. The students are more than willing or more than welcome to take whatever they want, but at least they'd have a teacher recommendation. That's something that's not currently happening, and I guess I thought, you know, I was assuming that it was happening when I had this discussion with the math department. So we did bring it up at the building, or at the school improvement workshop, and I think that's something that we're going to ask at least all the core teachers to do it. I know our elective teachers are already doing it. Hey, you're really good at this in ag, continue on with these ag courses. So I'm hoping that helps as well too with our number of course failures overall at the end of the school year. I can start this slide too. All right. So we're moving into goal 2, which is our culture highlights. And these are just a list of everything that we've done this year, some of our accomplishments, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is our NABIT bystander training, and that was for high school students. NABIT stands for Norms and Bystander Intervention Training. This evolved from a grant given by the Department of Homeland Security to the University of Buffalo. The University of Buffalo has a specific center. It's called the Alberti Center for Bullying Abuse Prevention. They received this grant to do a research study, and their research study was where they're going to give training to students on bystander prevention and different strategies that they can use as a way to prevent violence. Students volunteered to participate in this training, or in this research study, and they needed parental consent because it is a research study. We had about 12 students participate in this 4-hour training. It was not a 4-hour one-day training. We did it over 2 days. We ran one training session in the spring of 2024, and we're going to run another session in the fall. The purpose of this is to promote students' confidence in the ability to intervene and to reduce incidents of violence. Students were given a pre-test, and they were also given a post-test after the training to gauge their knowledge of bullying and harassment, to gauge their confidence in their ability to intervene in situations, to use the bystander intervention strategies that they were given. UB is also offering a second training called CARES, and Matt's going to talk about that a little bit later, so I don't want to steal all of it, but it will talk about, it'll help not only students, but it'll also help the adults in the building as well too, be able to respond to like inappropriate behaviors, behaviors of concern. So again, Matt's going to talk a little bit more about that when we get to our goals.
So the next goal of their social emotional support plans, that, you know, again, is something that Ms. Macaluso, our RTI, who oversees RTI in the district K-12, really works with teams on. It's really taking evidence that either to help teams come up with maybe some tier 1 interventions in the classroom, either to help a student maybe with anxiety or disorganization or disruptive behavior, impulsivity, maybe some poor social skills, etc. You know, it could be helping teams figure out some tier 1 interventions to try in the classroom. It could be some tier 2 stuff where there might be working with a school psychologist or a counselor, but it's really just putting more of an individualized plan in place for a student that maybe a team is seeing a student struggling in a classroom that might be impacting their academics. So that was the big move forward this year with some of our RTI process, just putting more things, come come up with a structured system and process for that. Moving on there, in terms of Aperture, if you recall, Aperture is a screener that we've been using the past 2 years here now. The first year, K-8, all the teachers were filling that out. This past year, we switched that to just K-5, where teachers filling that out, and 6-8, our students took this self-assessment themselves, and then our PPS department really broke the data down from there. And one of the big things, even just K-12, that I found that some of our students were showing kind of an area of weakness in was decision making. And that was some of the things they focused on this year, of lessons that they went and did in the classroom. In terms of some data that came out of some of this year, Mr. Berkshire will talk about that in a couple minutes here, a little bit more, some of the data from Aperture. The Anti-Defamation League, again, is our No Place for Hate program that we use, K-8, where each year from a capital region, the Anti-Defamation League, we do 3 different lessons to all students in K-8 for the No Place for Hate. There's a pledge at the beginning of the year that students sign. That's continued to be a good building of our character ed lessons. I mean, it could be lessons on just name calling and how hurtful that can be to students, and again, trying to provide examples. We go into the individual classrooms. We don't do it in assembly form just because we're trying to make them more meaningful to the students. And I think we've done a really good job just doing some of those lessons in the classroom that, again, not saying everything's, there's some still problems that can occur, but we're really trying to address things that we feel we're hearing. And then also the Anti-Defamation League brings up that they feel is a regional type of thing with that. From a cyber safety standpoint, this past year in middle school, high school, we we had a couple gentlemen from the Secret Service who came in and did assemblies for our students, just again about, cyber safety and the dangers out there on the social media platforms, and how students can be victims, how they can be hurting their future careers and things like that, in terms of how they're utilizing the social media platforms. That same evening as we did the assemblies this past year, we had a parent evening, family evening. Would have liked to see more, the attendance, but we also had some great resources we had from them, and that we were able to then disseminate out to families, whether through digitally or paper copies that we would hand out to people too. So again, that's something that we're always trying to keep addressing, is the cyber safety. And Christy and I, at the end of the year, definitely touch upon that when we're reviewing the code of conduct every year, and just how students should be using the social media within the school here too. Question, Jake?
Yes, thanks. So it's, I think, tangential to the safety aspect of cyber safety, but does what you do touch on at all teaching students or reinforcing the idea that you have to be very skeptical of what you see online, and like how you sift through the information that you see and use it? I understand and absolutely agree, and I'm glad you're doing things like be aware of what you're posting and sharing, because lots of reasons that other people interact with, but there's another side to it in terms of the information you see, and are you just...
I think K-12, I know particularly in the middle school, high school, our librarians are doing a good job of really, is their teachers, or ELA teachers bringing them in to do research. They're really talking about what is credible information. So there is the more academic piece of what's out there on the internet to be using, that's being taught also, yes.
So all students get all aspects of that for the cyber safety. I mean, not just the safety plus the what's a credible resource.
Yeah, the credible resources. I mean, our ELA teachers touch, whether it's the ELA teachers themselves or many of them come down and use Kylie or Mrs. Fricky or K-12 tech person to have lessons about doing research on the internet and how to use it. Sparty's our next one there. Is our mascot this past year, who we've silently recruited juniors and seniors to be Sparty, so no one really knew who Sparty was, which I think was pretty neat. Kids were always guessing and wondering, and But it definitely brought some life to things. I think Sparty showed up the first day of school last year. He's in a lot of our assemblies, whether at Ellis, at our PBI celebration kicking off here in September. And there's a lot of great pictures of Sparty greeting students that came into assembly, and then also at our high school pep rallies this year too. So it's been a neat thing to have around, and just build that school spirit with our students.
I have to admit too that I did not want to know who Sparty was. I knew the different students that were trained in how to be Sparty, but each time Sparty came out, I said I do not want to know who that is, because it felt a little bit of nostalgia for me as well too. So I want to do a little bragging too about our PTSA at the middle school, high school. They did a great teacher appreciation game in May, and it was just so well received. So in May, the middle school, high school PTSA led by Janelle Bucci for this event put on a fantastic week of good spirited fun for the faculty and staff. They hosted the game show Survivor. So faculty were tasked with completing dares and challenges, and they earned prizes depending on what dare and what challenge they did throughout the week by visiting Survivor Island, which was located right outside the high school office. After spinning a wheel, teachers had to complete the challenge in order to earn points. There were also instant prize winners, where teachers could pick directly from a prize box. These instant prize winners were celebrated with cheering, very loud cheering coming from the high school office, as well as the clackers, those applause thing. And so my secretary got a lot of bicep work in that week. Some of the examples of the challengers were to recreate some pictures of hungry hippo poses and send them in. Sing a song in the hallway and record it, send it in. And get in your car and make a parody of a ranting video that teachers went through the school year and why they should be appreciated. So the PTSA, I'm pretty sure it was Janelle, compiled these pictures and videos into a presentation and shared them with the faculty and staff each morning. So that was something I know I looked forward to every morning when I got my email. The week ended with an appreciation breakfast for all. So that was a great culture builder right at the end of the school year too, and helping our faculty and staff get through May, which is a pretty long month for some of us.
In our work here, we're always looking for more ways to try and figure out how our students are doing. And you've heard over the past 2 years now, you've heard about Aperture, and we're actually, we're starting to get some data here, and something that in year one, the counselors and the K-12 principal and the principals certainly analyzed. Year two, that continued on the analysis of the data, and then with the teaching of lessons for groups of students that were identified. But now we've been doing it, so we've done 2 years, and we're actually able to start seeing a little bit of some trends develop. So what you're seeing here on this page, this is Ellis, and the Aperture Social Motion Screener at Ellis is completed by the teacher. All right. So in the beginning of the year, early October, the teachers will complete a screener on each student, and it breaks them down into 3 different categories based on how the teacher responds. So they could fall into a need for instruction, so that student has social emotional needs. Typical, hey, this is what we would expect a typical 3rd grader to have in terms of where they are social emotionally. And then strength, where somebody really stands out as having many strengths in this area. So here you can see the breakdown of not only just how it broke down at the beginning of the year in the large circles on the left, but you can see how those students ended this school year. So the 32 students who fell within the need category in the fall, 10 of them moved into what we would call the typical category. And out of the 299 typical need students, 48 of them moved into the strength category.
I'm sorry. So could this be subjective? Is it pretty cut and dry what the questions are?
Yeah, so the questions are pretty, they're designed to be kind of definitive questions. The teachers do have to make an interpretation based on what they know of the student. If a student kind of flags as a student in need, they actually ask them more questions and more detailed screener, going into more detail about that student's needs. Yeah. Even more telling to me, you know, with the screener being answered by the teachers at the elementary school, Brian mentioning that up in the middle school and then through the high school, we actually have students self-supporting their screener, which to me tells me a lot. You know, these are the students telling us how they feel, you know, what are their responses to the questions they're being asked on the screener. So this graph here is actually showing students who took the social emotional screener at the beginning of 2022-23 school year, right? And then those same students who took the screener at the end of the 23-24 school year, just here in the springtime. And what we're seeing is the movement of our students of how they have answered these questions and where they fell on the screener over time, right? So beginning of 2023 to the end of 2024. And what we've seen here is that we've seen a decrease in the number of students that are showing a need for instruction that we would identify as higher needs, higher risk for social emotional situations, needing more support. We've seen an increase in the number of students that are typical and the number of students that have that as a strength. Moving past social emotional and moving into chronic absenteeism. And you know this has been something that's been up and down, and it's been in quite a bit in the news since COVID, and we've talked about it in this room many times. With the exception of where it ended up at the high school this year, we're getting down close to where we were pre-COVID with chronic absenteeism numbers at Ellis in the middle school. This year, the high school had ticked up a little bit right at the end of the school year. They were running at almost 30% most of the school year. And when we look at daily average attendance,
Just a quick thing,
Yeah.
Christy, are you saying seniors, is that part of the uptick?
A little bit, but we also had, I was trying to think, I was like, oh, I should have gotten this number. I know of at least 2 students that dropped out this year after us sticking with them. I know, when I shared with Matt one time about one of the students, somebody he worked with and very closely in his K-12 position, he said, oh. He's like, no. So it was just 2 kids that we just kept trying and trying and trying. So I know that brings our number up because we can't drop them from school until after they've missed 20 days of school as well too. So by then it's usually the beginning of the school year, or they've missed enough as well too, but we wait until they miss 20 consecutive days in order to drop them. Because we like to try every strategy in and of itself too, like trying to get the parents in, trying to do a home visit if the parents won't come in with the student. So I know at least 2 of our students do that. And to be honest with you, I think like more of the seniors this year, it was either coming late to school or wanting to leave early all the time. I really don't, I'd have to go back and look at the numbers in the building profile, but I really don't think it was our seniors that were that chronically absent.
Thank you.
for daily average attendance by buildings, this is just your, hey, how many kids are in school every day? What percentage of the kids are in school? The numbers, I had Melissa double check this. I said, are they exactly the same as last year? And with rounding, they were. So 93 at the elementary school, 94 at the middle school, and 90 at the high school. And you know, if we look back to June of 2018, we were 94, 94, 92. So we are back in the same territory where we were pre-COVID. We're certainly not where we were in the 2022 school year right now. discipline data. This is a chart you've seen before. This is just a raw number of referrals across the 3 buildings. This is up over last year, and with the exception of the elementary school, the late winter and the spring were busier than the first half of the school year. And we will have each building principal talk a little bit more about these numbers and break them down, help give some context. Just these being raw numbers here. So I'll go over Ellis, and I'll start with this donut chart here. It represents the student body as a whole. At Ellis, almost 84% of all students didn't receive a single referral. About 14% of the students received anywhere between 1 and 4 referrals, and 3% of the students received more than 5. That equates to about 12 students that received more than 5 referrals throughout the school year. On the table below the donut chart, this is a data point that we were monitoring from Ellis's building improvement plan. And what we wanted to do was track the number of referrals that were generated by our students who were considered high need. Those kids who 5 or more referrals, right? The previous school year, that tier of students generated 108 referrals amongst them. So this year, 12 students generated 89. So our target, what we were shooting for, was 92. So those are students who, as we talked about, culture, things that we did this year, the social emotional learning plans and behavior support plans for students. Those were students who were targeted through the RTI process and with the work that teachers and teams did with Melissa and even with consultants that we worked with on individual students.
You know, at the middle school, one of the things that we always keep talking about is relationships and relationships we build so that we can hopefully have that strong bond with a student to hopefully help them correct behavior when they have problems with it. And that's, you know, through our PBIS program, those are some of the things that many of the teachers will try to do is handle those things more one-on-one, you know, with students, continuing to stress positive behavior expectations and one, trying to dig to see what is there a problem behind the behavior, you know, and I can tell you that our teachers really work hard at that, and then as the year goes along, though, I think after trying with some of these students, it does get to a point where, you know, you have to start going to some other levels here too, and, you know, we tried to, at the continuous school workshop, really look at some of our referrals, you know, so our number was definitely a lot higher this year. We had 456 referrals there. But, you know, 17 of our students who had 5 or more referrals, or 7% of the students, generate 60% of the referrals. You know, so, you know, when you look at things, you know, we had 182 students who didn't have a single referral. So those are things we look at, and how do we start going forward, target those 17 going into this next school year. You know, I know Ms. McAloose and I have already started talking about a couple students, like, we gotta have this in place for September, and you know, that's where we start really diving deeper, and those are the 17 students we have to make sure we take a look at things, that we work with the teams to make sure these students are starting out on the right foot here at the end of the year. And some of the things we found in terms of what were some of these behaviors, some of it was just students goof around in class and just be disruptive, just to disrupt the learning environment to a point, you know, and we try to take a look at that when we do scheduling. We try to look at students to make sure people are you know, sometimes friends together isn't always a great thing. So those are things that we take a look at throughout the summer here too. So yeah, we definitely have looked at that. We're trying to, a lot of the teams felt, just from our talks this summer and our workshops, that how can we have more of the teachers be more consistent across each of the classrooms with their expectations, so that, you know, sometimes students go from one classroom to the next. There can be some different parameters of what is acceptable behavior in a classroom. So we're trying to tighten that up more as they head into the school year here too, of just what are some general, real expectations? Then you may have a couple other ones, you know, again, following kind of our PBIS model, but again, taking a deeper dive with them a little bit in the classroom itself.
All right, here's the high school's donut, as Matt called it. We had, at the end of the school year, on the previous slide, or one of the previous slides, you saw that we ended the school year at 455 referrals. We have, our enrollment this year was 346, so like Brian mentioned, and I know this is the same for the Ellis information as well too, a majority of our students, 72% of high school students, that's 245 students, are not getting any referral. They're doing, you know, what is asked of them. Tier 2, you can see that it's roughly 22%, and then Tier 1, when I think about like those models or the pyramids that Matt was showing earlier with regards to iReady data, and you always want your red at the top to be like the smallest. When I even look at our Tier 3, I would like 2 or 3 kids less, so I took a little bit deeper dive into that. So we had 19 students that had 5 or more referrals this year. And again, when I look down at those students, what was it, 15 of them were my underclassmen. And I had 3 juniors and then 1 senior, and the 1 senior he was one of my ones that just kept leaving early without permission. So those were his more than 5 referrals. So one of the major things that we talked about both last year at the school improvement workshop and this year is the number of students who were getting referrals for skipped class. That was our largest number. So last year, you can see up on the screen or on your papers that you have, we had 182 referrals last year for just skipped classes. We had a target goal this year of 173, and we were actually a lot lower than that. We were at 126. Well, that's great that we had a lot less referrals for skipped classes. That's still a really high number of students that are skipping. So one of the things that we talked about is identifying these students who are skipping class more than once, and trying to figure out, really having a discussion with this student, like what is it about this class that you keep skipping, and even bringing the teacher into it, having that conversation too. Is it something because the student doesn't like math class or doesn't understand the class? Do they not like the teacher? Did their parent tell them that they had to take this class and they really don't want to take it, so that's why they're skipping? We got to get down to the reason why. It could be, I know Matt mentioned earlier too, like engagement. You know, you lose students a lot when you're not engaged. We don't need every teacher to be entertaining while they're up there in front of the class teaching, but they have to at least be engaging, right? Or have engaging activities or content for the students to focus on. So that's a lot of what we talked about. One other thing too, and I can't remember, I think Tracy, you might have asked this question earlier when we were talking about course failures. I think it's important to mention too, we do have another program we use. It's called Intervention Compass. And this is where, I know at least Melissa does for the high school, I'm pretty sure she does this for middle school as well too. After every 5-week report goes out and after every quarter grade goes out, she's able to pull the data. And I think actually Matt built these walls that are in there, the data that we wanted. So it pulls any student that has had more than 5 absences, that is failing 2 or more classes, and that's had 5 or more referrals. So they kind of come up red in our system so that we can talk about them at our RTI meetings. Kind of create some plans for them in like an action plan, like of steps moving forward. So I just wanted to bring that up because absenteeism, course failure, and referrals, we do talk about that, and we do have a system that makes it a lot easier for us to identify those kids. And like I said, the ones that come up on all 3 of these come up in red, but we do have those kids that come up in yellow as well too, just like we do in the iReady, and those are the ones that we also are on watch, keeping track of those kids as well too.
So the next goal in terms of some of the highlights of this was go through is our community goals, and one of the things that our communication specialist here has really continued to do is really reach out to the community and stuff. And you can see the amount of new Facebook followers we have, Instagram, that continues to keep increasing. Those seem to be our 2 biggest social media platform that which what we're using. Our website has continued to including updates on that. We have a mobile app that's going to be rolled out that has improved abilities versus the past one. It's being rolled out in September here. We already have paper copies and the welcome back mailings for parents to have so they can figure that out with it. I'm sure Sarah will continue to keep putting some posts out on that. You know, in the community with the Greenville Pioneer, that's continued to receive good feedback. It hits a lot of our people who aren't using social media. This past year, a new Spartan Strong section was added to that. So again, just getting a lot of good information that is going on here on a daily basis. You know, Synergy Parent View, we will continue to keep pushing that out to parents, trying to get more people involved, utilizing the Parent View, so they can be monitoring and looking at their student grades and seeing what's happening with their student on a daily basis. This past year too is, I think it was alluded to a little bit earlier, was Ellis rolled out different report cards this year. I know standards-based report cards, different videos were created for parents so they could understand what these report cards meant. So again, just trying to communicate these new things that are going out. District Counter was new last year. It's again, I think you have one tonight that was distributed to you to use. I think it's been a helpful thing. It's nice to hear parents who are posting on their fridge. I think the first couple of pages also has a lot of very just important information just for everybody K-12, whether it's different phone numbers, where to reach people, 2-hour delay, things like that. So again, ways to communicate. Of course, it's posted digitally, but also it's nice to have that hard copy at times too. Our Spartan Snapshot continues to, there's a little tweak from the previous year when she was doing more bi-weekly curriculum. This is Spartan Snapshot's adding a little bit of everything. I know Sierra has a couple surprises I think she has for this upcoming year that she's tweaked with it too. And then of course, school safety, we're always continuously looking at our school safety. We had a lot of different templates that were put together this past year that Mr. Bennett and Ms. Peel, so Sierra worked on to create for that quick, immediate email or text or blast out to parents in the event there is an emergency going on here. So we're getting quick information out and accurate information. So that has been a big thing, and we're continuing this year to look at other things with our school safety and how we can keep improvement. And so I know Mr. Bennett has an evening parent thing at the end of September too, so we'll plug out there for that. Another piece of data that we continue to keep using, this will be our 9th year of gathering perception survey data. We've been using the same tool, so we'll be able to look back at historically at the data we have. If you recall, we have students, faculty and staff, and families take this perception survey. There are a series of statements that people rate on a scale of 1, strongly disagree, to 5, strongly agree. It is analyzed each year by our building level teams to help shape our goals, to help start building initiatives for the upcoming years. We definitely take a look at the 2s and 3s where in terms of some of the information. And reality is we use some of this data to really help us measure quantitative growth for the next year too. We look to see, have we increased in this area with students or with parents or with our staff? So that's something that we keep looking at each year, which is nice to have. Also, in the chart you have up there, so the perception survey at the end also has 2 open-ended response questions. The first question is, what are the strengths of the school? The other one is, what can be improved? You can see this is a K-12 kind of quick snapshot, but do know that each school had a chart like this for each building. I think it's in your profiles or your thicker packet to look at. You can see we definitely have some areas that people are saying we have strengths in, with our communication, but communication is also a strength but a challenge too among our families. One of the things they're looking at is a little more parent-teacher communication. So we're trying to, sometimes we have to try to figure out what the people are looking for too, because it doesn't dive that deep. So we are, with the buildings, trying to look at that. And then also one of the things that stood out a little bit from some of the challenges was, our students talking about students respecting each other. So they're saying the respect amongst each other and bullying, and then some of that also from our parents too. So how do we take a look at that this year also in our building goals? But again, it continues to, I think, be a good tool We definitely would love to see more family responses, so we're going to continue to keep trying to promote that, to get our families involved with that. As you're talking to community members, and if they ever ask about this survey, please, if there's some feedback, we're always looking for how we can get that out some better.
Thanks, Brian. So all that data that we just talked about, all that information that we just presented, feeds into our plan for the upcoming school year. So I'd like to shift here and talk a little bit about where do we want to be and what's our plan for how we're going to get there. Building leadership teams, teachers, some parents, and as I mentioned earlier, even a student this year got together in July, and some of those teams even prior to that in the springtime, to start to formulate what is our plan of action for how do we continue to improve year over year. So tonight I'm going to give you an overview of the district goals that'll be in the district's improvement plan, and then each principal will do a quick flyover of what they're looking at as their building goals, what will be in their building improvement plans for this upcoming school year. So beginning with the district goals, goal 1, curriculum. All students will engage in relevant and challenging learning that will motivate them to be collaborative, creative, and inquisitive. We have 2 buckets under there, 2 strategies we're going to do to reach that goal. And the first one has to do with training and implementation for the rollout of the Bookworms Reading Program, or ELA program, down in Ellis, including continuing to make improvements to our intervention block. This is going to be a heavy lift. It's going to need support at the building level as well as at the district level. So you will also see this in Matt's Ellis Building Improvement Plan. We need this. We need everybody on all hands on deck to roll this out and make the success of it a priority. The second strategy under curriculum is going to be another year for our continuous improvement review process. As I mentioned earlier, this year was the 2nd year of it. We've had 2/3 of departments engaged so far. The final third will be rolling out this year. So we're also going to make some improvements to the process. We're going to add some kind of purposeful checkpoints and deadlines to the process. And the purpose for that is meant to give admin time to review and plan to support what the department set as their priorities. As I pointed out earlier, we had some really great things that came out of this process, some really good teacher learning that happened, some really good collaborative team things, and some evolution of some sequences. And I feel if we are more purposeful about when we sit down and how we plan to support departments and reaching their goals, that we all work together in the success of the students in mind. Goal 2, culture, remains that all students, staff, and families will be provided a welcoming, safe, secure, supportive, and engaging school environment where all students thrive. So, each year, when we look at challenges on the perception surveys and the open-ended responses, respect, bullying comes up from students and parents. This is something that is as old as time itself, but that doesn't mean we're okay with it. We had 8 instances of DASA reports, DASA investigations at the school district, or K-12 last year, and that's 8 too many. So we are setting the strategy of developing norms around peer relations and anti-bullying. So some of the things that we've already spoke about tonight, the NABIT program, which Christy talked about that we had started last year. Well, in year 2 of that program includes training another cohort of students in NABIT, as well as training a cohort of teachers and a cohort of students in a program called CARES. So this bullying prevention and bystander education. In addition to that, we have, through the partnership with Questar and their access to a grant for a tool called Stop It. Stop It is an anonymous reporting system where students can report incidences where they felt they're being bullied or somebody else is being bullied or harassed, or a number of other things as well, where it can be tailored, where they can report on different types of incidents or threats that they feel may be happening in the school. So we see that as a tool to help people be able to report things in a way that's anonymous and to be able to have access to administrators directly without having to be the person who goes and steps foot into the high school office or the middle school office, or even the upper elementary students. We'll continue our work with the Anti-Defamation League and No Place for Hate, as well as our work on respect and anti-bullying with the Alice Character Education focus. Last, our district goals around community. The Greenville Central School District will partner with families and larger community to improve student learning and well-being. As we look back here, we see that there was a lot of really good feedback on communication at the district level. Right? They liked some of the things that were happening, some of the things that Sierra is doing. But there was some feedback that, hey, we feel like we could know more about how our individual child is doing, right? And so that back and forth parent-teacher communication piece. Well, one of the things that we want to do is training on effective homeschool communication, right? We tend in this day and age to get caught up on technology, right, for communication, but technology is only a tool. It does not replace human-to-human interaction, right? Conversations, phone calls, but doing that, right? Making phone calls, being able to communicate clearly with people, that takes a skill, right? And that needs to be taught and developed in our faculty and in our admin as well. So we're going to be providing professional development and resources to support written and telephone communication for teachers and admin throughout the school year. That's going to be how we're going to work together with our community. Any thoughts or questions on these district goals at this point? I'd like to introduce Matt Irvin. He's been sitting up here so quietly, and he's been very well behaved. Yeah.
You were wondering if they'd let me use the microphone.
Yeah.
Here I am. Long wait. I would like to present the Ellis Building goals for the year. I will do my best to explain them. I welcome any questions that you may have related to them, with the understanding that most, if not all of them, were created prior to my arrival. So it's been a nice learning opportunity for me to understand what the priorities of our teachers are in the building, and how we can take those priorities forward. So I'll start with our 2 curriculum goals. Matt briefly mentioned a new instructional block that will be part of our Bookworms rollout this year. This is a period of time, instructional time, that's going to be new for some of our teachers and requires, as Matt said, a heavy lift. We're going to have the ability to utilize our coaches and our interventionists who have been trained at this point to go into the classrooms and model the most effective use of the time for the teachers in the classroom, and allow those classroom teachers to kind of observe the teaching in action, ask some questions, in addition to other trainings that will be provided over the course of the year for our teachers and our staff members. The other area of focus related to curriculum for this year will be based on executive functioning. This is a topic of both interest and concern, I think, for teachers and parents. In my experience, in my previous role as a classroom teacher, when I would connect with parents, they would describe, and a student was struggling, and you'd ask to describe what's happening, they were describing executive functioning skills without knowing that they were actually executive functioning skills. And so this is a nice way, I think, to connect some of the learning that's happening at both home and school. Matt just mentioned that one of our priorities this year will be to help parents, families see the learning that's happening. And I think that there's an area of opportunity for us here to educate our parents about executive functioning skills and the importance of those, particularly as I listen to Brian and Christy talk about things like engagement and attendance, and all of those are kind of foundational cornerstone educational skills that start at the elementary level. So there's definitely an opportunity for us there. In terms of culture, the theme for our cultural goal this year is a student sense of belonging. We are going to be continue to use the responsive classroom curriculum that's been in use at Ellis for years. We have the opportunity to invite back a former teacher, Bill Kiefer, am I saying that right? Yeah, is going to come back and do some training for our teachers. So that's an exciting opportunity. I think what we were going to try to do is create a sense of common language throughout the building, which we can then also communicate to parents. Because again, the things that we're practicing and learning in schools, I think it's important for us to share with parents so that they can use those same skills at home. One thing that we are going to ask all teachers to do over the course of the year is implement a classroom meeting, which is a kind of foundational core facet of the responsive classroom curriculum. And it's something in the past that some teachers have chosen to implement and others have not. And so I think it provides a sense of continuity for our school community to know that all classrooms are doing that. So that will be part of that goal. And then lastly, for our community goal, again, we're really focusing on communication. I have had the opportunity to come to Ellis in the spring and spend a couple of days there. I have been there obviously throughout the summer, observing our summer tutoring. I think that there are some really, really incredible things that are happening at Ellis, and I want our teachers to feel celebrated for all of their hard work. And so I think a good way to do that is to help parents understand what's happening on a daily basis. I think there is communication happening. I think we can probably work to find ways to perhaps make it more efficient. I know that many of our teachers use the Seesaw app to share photos of things that are happening in the classrooms. I am going to have my own Seesaw account this year. I'll have a principal's office Seesaw account. My goal is to take a picture a day and share with parents what's happening, all the incredible things that are happening at Ellis. And also to loop in the rest of our goals. So if we're going to be learning about this intervention block and meeting the needs of all our learners and strengthening our executive functioning skills and using these responsive classroom strategies, are we communicating that to parents so that they know that all the hard work we're doing? So that is the kind of big picture of our goals for Ellis this year. Thank you.
Okay, at the middle school, taking a look at the curriculum goal, the strategy we're really focused on this year is, we know students are not achieving sufficient rates of proficiency or mastery. And again, looking at that one report where I spoke about the quarterly failures, and just talking to my teams in the spring of when we were looking at it, end of the third quarter, kids who are failing, what is the problem? Is it that they have maybe a learning disability, or is that they're just not staying organized, they're not keeping track of things, they're not studying? And that was kind of the common theme that came out of that. So we are taking an approach to make sure we're explicitly teaching study skills and organizational skills. I had a group of about 7 people in here last week, from teachers, teaching assistants, as we laid out kind of base things that we're looking to have go across the building. That of course teachers still have the flexibility in their own classroom of hey, here are some basic studying skill tips for kids themselves, but then also we're going to be sending out things to parents too, to help parents at home. But then each teacher will also be talking specifically about their own class, because it's a little bit different sometimes studying for something in math versus something in ELA. So again, what are some basic study type skills that we can have everyone talking about, but then through each building too. And organization too. So we're going back to either trying to have students teachers are going to take the time in the classrooms to really make sure students are planning out short-term and long-term assignments, whether it's in Google Calendar, Google Keep. We're also going to have some paper versions of agenda books available in the event that a digital platform is not working for students on their Chromebooks. So we're really hoping to kind of go back to that, teaching these life skills too. They're life skills that they need to be successful, not only in middle school, but in high school and beyond. And then also just the idea, explicit instruction about growth mindset, and really that focusing on, you know, students feeling like they can do things, and it's okay to get good grades. It's okay to do your best on a test that doesn't necessarily count for a grade either, whether it's a state test and iReady. So really trying to start working on that mindset within our building. How do we change that among some of our students to motivate them more to just do well for themselves? With behavior, again, I spoke about this a little bit, where we felt like some of the behaviors were within the classroom itself of just, you know, being disruptive, not like egregious behaviors throughout the building or violent or things like that, but just disrupting the learning environment of their classmates. And how do we address that more? Sort of looking at classroom expectations and behavior management within the classroom itself, being more consistent. But then also kind of reviving our minor infraction log, where teachers were really keeping track of data about students they spoke to about behavioral things, you know, that didn't get to a referral yet. We feel like we dropped off a little bit with that last year, and how do we revitalize that so that teams are seeing that, hey, I have this student 6th period and they were falling on my class today too, but I also see that someone else wrote in the infraction log that they dealt with them first period too. So maybe as a team we need to talk about this to figure out what's going on. And what do we need to do? What's maybe another intervention? Do we need to be reaching out to home? So again, just having more conversations about some of these behaviors rather than kind of all being isolated within their own rooms at times. Then the last thing, this is kind of revamping a little bit of what we had last year. Again, of trying to get that a communication log for each grade level to use, with them also documenting when they're communicating home. We're trying to, one, make sure we're communicating home and keeping track of what we're communicating home with about positive things, along with when there's needs to either talk to a parent about classwork or behavior too. So again, one, getting the best method of communication for a parent. Is it a phone call? Is it an email? We're also trying to explore some of the tools that teachers can use with their computers here versus trying to, you know, even if it's after hours sometimes, some teachers will try to communicate with parents after hours and not necessarily want to use their personal phone. So that's kind of where we're at with our goals coming up. It was a great workshop this summer, and I really appreciate the people that worked this summer and came in again last week, as I think we've got some good things in place for the fall.
All right, so on to the high school. So our two strategies under the curriculum goal are supporting student engagement and the collaborative classroom visits. If you're thinking that these sound familiar, you are correct. These are two things that we focused on last year as well too. We saw some success with some of them, and we wanted just to make some tweaks so that we can continue using them for this school year as well too. The collaborative classroom visits are just that, where teachers have the opportunity to visit their colleagues' classrooms, with the intent on taking something away, whether it be a new strategy or technique, or a new idea just to implement in their classroom. We have so many teachers that are fantastic and that have great strengths, and we just don't have the opportunity at the high school level to showcase that often. So this is a perfect opportunity to showcase, you know, all the great things that our teachers are doing. The engagement strategy is also a continuation from last year, as we didn't get as far into it in our action steps from our plan last year as we hoped to. So this year, our focus is, you know, we started, we had some teachers from other districts come in and do a PD. We had from Hudson City Schools and also from Tech Valley, and we have this great start to a lot of engagement strategies. And so we have a list maybe about like 15 to 17. We really want to get that database out to others and create something that's a little bit more user-friendly. Like right now it's just in a list and it explains how to do the strategy. In addition to that, we want to be able to showcase people that are using these strategies at faculty meetings. So if they want to get up and just either take some pictures or take a little video of how it worked out in their class, or just explain at a faculty meeting how it worked. And then that way other, even different departments can say, you know what, I'm glad you used that in math, but this is how we can use it in science. So that's our curriculum goals for this year. Our cultural goal is very similar to what Brian just shared. It's behavioral expectations. I know he mentioned it earlier, and I think he just mentioned it recently too, that we need to communicate clear and consistent behavioral expectations to all stakeholders, but it's also making sure that what we're doing in each classroom is very similar. So yes, each teacher has like their autonomy, and it's, I know our junior and senior teachers don't really have students asked to use the bathroom first. They're a little bit older, they have them just take the bathroom pass and go. But I think it's just even like limiting the amount, like, okay, the common expectation is that you're not at the bathroom for longer than 5 minutes unless it's a severe emergency. So kind of making sure that every teacher is on the same page with regards to that. And then our community goal, again, it sounds very familiar to what we've been talking about. A lot of the high school perception data showed that we need to communicate better home, teacher to parent, with regards to specific or individual students and how they're performing at school. With regards to some tweaks for some of our internal communication, for example, we don't really share out like what's happening at each, or what each committee is doing. So I'm going to provide some time within a faculty meeting so that different committees can share out, so that we know what work is going on within our school and within our district. I think I got it all.
So that there is an overview of the district's improvement plan and the building's continuous improvement plans. Thank you for your questions along the way, and your suggestions as well. Do you have any more before we let you proceed with the rest of the agenda for the evening? So thank you, and on behalf of everyone that's up here, on behalf of Ms. Macaluso, who wasn't able to be here tonight because she's not feeling well, I want to thank you for your support, and just want to let you know we will continue to work tirelessly to make this a district where everyone learns, teaches, and belongs. Thank you.
So if we do have questions, where do you want us to send them?
Yeah. You missed it. I really
That's quick. Yeah, please feel free to email me, and I'll figure out if it's a question for Brian, Christy, or Matt, or then I'll loop them in.
I would like to thank you. It's a lot of information. I think that, I know just personally, I like to digest it and so forth. So thank you for the offer that we could send questions to you. I love the questions that you're asking, and as you dig into more information and the data and so forth. And it's not just about numbers, it's understanding the students and really the whole picture behind what's going on. That's one of the things I love about Greenville. We're small enough that we have that ability to do that, and I think that's one of our strengths. So, thank you, you all. Okay, so I'm going to move us on to discussion, and I'm going to turn it over to Mike Bennett, our superintendent, to give us an update on the capital project.
Yeah, so I do want to also just reiterate my thanks to not only the 4 admin who's presented, the rest of the team that helped put together much of this report. But I also want to thank the teachers who spent a lot of time over the summer coming in for the data meetings, school improvement meetings. I always get a kick out of people when they ask, oh, your summer's slowing down, it's a nice time to just kind of kick up and relax and catch up. And if they only knew how much work goes on in a school district over the summer, or at least in Greenville Central School District, it's pretty impressive. So I want to make sure that I publicly thank all those who participated in those various committees and conference days and things like that. You saw tonight 2 hours worth of hard work, a lot of data, a lot of number crunching, but it all connects back to kids, and that's not lost on us. It's not lost on our faculty and staff. So again, thank you very much for that. From a capital project update, we're starting to get into the meat of a capital project. I feel for 2 months that I've had this on our agenda, I haven't had much to report out on. So we are at a point where we are making headway, and we're starting to see transformation both at the middle school, high school art room area, some band room situations we got going on, and down at Ellis. Please don't walk down there and think, oh my God, we are never going to get our kids back here at school. Trust us, we will. A couple of things. First, I do want to just say that news for Board of Education, the crawl space has been tested and has passed all the air sample testing. That was the bane of our existence for the first part of the summer, and getting that all worked out. So we are at a point where the majority of the areas that were planned to be tested this summer have all been tested and passing. Our classrooms are starting to take shape. We've got paint, we've got sheetrock, we've got ceiling and ceiling tiles that are starting to be added, electricity, data points, those types of things are all showing up on walls. It's looking really good. Some of our areas that I think started today or going to start this week are some of those hardwood floors that are starting to be redone, because we've gotten a lot of the interior walls, ceilings, and those things taken care of. So the hope is by early next week we will have all the floors that are slated to be, the wood floors that are slated to be done, having them refinished. So we're excited about that. Two areas that we're, well, one area we're concerned about in regards to starting up is our art room. Well, it's getting dark now, so you can't really see it. We knew that the two art rooms were going to be have a lot of work done. We were hoping to have the middle school art room up and running, and we put some classroom, put the kids back in there. We knew that the high school area was going to be a little bit further out. We knew that going in, but with given some of the delays and some of the areas in which we were a little more delayed in getting some of the things that we needed, materials, we're going to be a little bit slow to open up that art room. So we have communicated twice this year this summer to our teachers. This past one on Friday, we let our art folks know that we're going to have to work with Plan B and working with the middle school, high school administration on room locations and things like that to make sure that our kids are being able to participate in their art classes. The other room that was getting close is that pre-K classroom. There was quite a bit of renovation down there in regards to extending some of the spaces and doing some plumbing and electrical work that's going in there. We are really focusing right now and working hard to try to get that up and running. That's an area that we're a little concerned about right now. Some flooring, some things that we've got a little delay in getting some of those things in. We're starting to see those things being shipped, and our contractors are starting to work more on Saturdays now, work a little bit of longer shifts, so we're starting to get rooms buttoned up. I do want to say that Rich and his crew has done an amazing job at getting to classrooms at Ellis that they are able to get into. They have worked around not only classroom furniture, but probably 5 or 6 different contracting companies that they're working around. So the middle school, high school has just about where it needs to be in regards to getting ready for September, and over the next 2 weeks, the shift will really be down to the elementary school to get that ready for our kiddos come September. There will be an expectation, I'm sure, that Rich's guys will have a lot of, we'll need some time to get our classrooms back put together once the contractors are buttoned up and moving on. So feeling pretty good about a lot of that stuff. We will send one more update out to our teachers who are affected by the construction, probably at the beginning of next week, just to kind of give them more of an idea of what's going on. And again, being purposeful with our communications, we've kind of set those dates out there so they know when to expect the latest update on what's happening. So what started out kind of a slow, kind of wonky project, trying to get everything set. I think that contractors are learning to work with each other, working with SEI, our architect, and schoolhouse management has been a great addition to helping us kind of facilitate the different things that are going on. They have done a great job of making sure contractors understand our need to get into classrooms, working together. But the crew that they've got on site I've been very impressed with. And again, I just want to give a shout out to Rich and his guys and gals for working as hard as they have been. So that's the update at this point. Any questions? Okay, Jack.
Going back to an early part of the update, you mentioned the crawl space.
Yes.
The air test came back negative.
Correct.
So is the work in the crawl space completely done now?
It is.
Okay.
As far as any asbestos goes in, now we can get contractors in there. I'm hoping everyone can come to our September 9th tour of facilities, because I have put that out in areas so you guys you've heard us talk about this crawl space. I'm excited to show it off to you now. I went down last Thursday or Friday with Craig Glover from Schoolhouse, and it is remarkable. The 5,500 bags of debris that they've taken out of there and the spaces in which they were working. They were not big people. They had to be little people working in there. There's not a lot of room. So, yeah. Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. So now I want to talk about our board goals and objectives. And so we have the attachment. So what we did was when we had our workshop, July, time just goes by so quickly. One of the things that during our discussion we had decided to continue pretty much the same goals, the feeling being that we could continue to improve on them and working through some of the same procedures and tactics that we have been using. So that was kind of overall the summary and the consensus from people attending. What I've done here is just summarize what the specific tactics that we want. So we're still keeping the 3 silos or 3 areas of focus. Transparency, in which we prioritize stakeholder relationships through open communication, transparency, and engagement. That's the first one. Then we also have accountability, in which the board wants to foster an accountability culture throughout the district. And the third focus being an analysis and committing to regular and rigorous analysis of its practices and performance. The one thing that we still need to do is to put names to tasks. So I was good. I did not just simply roll everyone's name over. What I'd like to do is if you could think through the specific tasks that we have, and if there's one that you're interested in, just shoot me an email and then we can put your name on it. If you would like to continue doing what you were doing last year, by all means, do that. I just didn't want to simply assume in case people wanted to do different things. The one area where I kept the names was review the current policies, because that's driven by the policy committee. So myself, Dave, and Jay are on the policy committee, so that was the only one where I kept the names. So really your task is to look it over, and if there's a specific thing that you want to do, let me know. I'd say before the next meeting, please. Any questions about that? All right, so we have, let's see, Next on for discussion, we have a draft 25-26 budget development calendar. I'll turn it back to Mike. If you want to just take us through that. Thank you.
Yeah, so the draft of the calendar, budget calendar, is really built the same as it's been the last few years. We figure out where the budget adoption date is going to be. It's set by the state, kind of work ourselves backwards. So what's presented to you tonight is the draft of that document for you to take a look at. No real major changes in regards to highlights or timeframes that we want to get to. So again, with program reports, building reports, our department reports, all in there to make sure that we have an opportunity for the board to understand the processes we're going through in order to create our budget and to hear out from transportation, food service, or buildings and grounds, or buildings, those types of things. So please take a look at it. If you've got any questions, we'll be looking to adopt in September.
Thank you, Mike. Yep, microphone. Thank you, Mike. Now, next for discussion, we have the night class, the New York Cooperative Liquid Acid Security System. Todd is not here, so am I turning it over to you, Mike?
Yeah, I can, I want to make sure that we don't lose this. I think we've had night class come in and do a presentation to the Board of Education. We've been able to provide questions to answers for people as they've looked to, for the board to figure out how we're going to move forward with this. One of the questions I got was in regards to what are we looking at as far as accounts that we would be utilizing. A couple of things here. One, we don't want to lose relationships with the local banks we're currently using. So the idea isn't necessarily to take away from large portions of the money that we're using in other banks. But what we'd like to be able to do is take some of our smaller accounts, whether it's scholarship, whether it's class funds, and the third is scholarships, student activities, and cafeteria. These are smaller amounts of money that can generate a greater interest, greater revenue for those things that would help to prolong and fund some of the scholarships longer, or the student activities longer. So again, those would be the little ones that we'd like to take away. The other piece would be, really twofold. The capital project money that we will get, we'll get a large chunk of that coming up shortly, but we would love to be able to put into night class and earn that interest. Again, I think that much higher interest will really be able to, pad some of the things, we talked about the crawl space and the asbestos and the amount of money that we've had to dip into for that. To be able to recoup some of that through night class would be helpful. And then the other piece is, when we start, the tax revenue comes in September. Those things don't have to, be spent out right away. Much like the capital project funds, they don't get spent out right away, and we can draw on this when we need to draw on it. So those are the areas that we'd really like to be able to utilize night class to really help give us some another revenue stream. The auditors, the state comptroller has put out a report. I can get you documents from other school districts that have used night class to see the amount of money that how much more money that they've been able to bring in, school districts have been able to bring in using night class. So we're hoping that that's something that the board is ready to go with, and then we can vote on a resolution to make it happen. I'm not Todd, but I hope I did okay there. So Todd, if you watch on videotape, I hope I did okay.
Thank you, Mike. Do we have any questions at this point? I think most of the questions we've already asked, I feel comfortable that they have been answered. Jay, did you want to?
I have one question. I know it
Of
was
course
asked.
you do, Jay, you're gonna quiz me here. Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, it's not multiple choice. It was asked, I don't remember what the final answer was, but there was a question about, like, hypothetically, under what circumstance, like, what's the risk? Under what circumstance could you actually be in a position of, I don't want to say losing the investment, but having it frozen or something happening? Is there a circumstance where that can happen? And so, like, what is it? I realize it might be very unlikely, but just to understand.
Sure. I think the question, if I remember correctly, was asked to the gentleman who came and presented that very question, was what happens if, with banks, we know that if they go under, there's a certain level of insurance that is gone with them. I mean, it would have to be a pretty large collapse for something like that to happen. But again, I think given the fluidity of us being able to remove our monies from our night class account, I think that you never say there's no risk in anything, but it is our availability and access to the money is there, so that if we see something coming down the horizon, or within a week or something, we're able to get that money back, take our money out, I should say.
So it sounds like there's no circumstance where the principal amount we put in, we can't get out, or that would shrink.
Correct. I mean, the interest rates are adjustable,
Sure.
Like anywhere else, but they do serve on or get a higher interest rate than what we get at local lenders.
Yeah, I'm not taught either, so I don't remember what instruments they invested, but I think there were government bonds,
Right.
bills, whatever. So I think, remember, I'll try and explain this basic question, that if something cataclysmic were to happen, would affect the value of those instruments, like you said, it's not going to affect the money we put in, and we could still get that money out.
Yes, and they're diverse enough, I
That's
think, right, that if there's one area that it's failing, that diverse enough to help protect us a little bit.
Mike, you can, well, first of all, let me ask you, what time frame are you looking for? Any different size investment? Because I remember when we were, after the presentation, the discussion we had was, we were gonna take baby steps into this to get a learning experience with my class. But I understand the urgency now, try to recoup some of the money that we had to make on the capital project. Another question is on the bonding for the capital project. Are we bonding out the entire amount and getting the funds soon, or is the bond going to be at the completion of the project?
We are not bonding out the entire.
So it's going to be staged?
It's going to be staged. We do have one coming up where we'll get our first monies. We won't be dispensing all that money to our contractors until work is done and things like that. So we'll have it in district. So that's where we want to be able to move the money into that. As far as our general, banking and things like that, I think what we really wanted to focus on were those three little smaller funds, whether it be activities accounts, scholarships, food service, because again, I think we want to see what this looks like. How does it look? And I think one of the things the board really wanted to make sure was that we weren't taking large sums of money out of the banks that we're currently using. So that's kind of where we were looking.
All right, so you're going to stage out the bonds, and then as soon as you receive the funds for those bonds, the plan would be to go right into night class for as long as possible, and then as contractors request payment, those payments be coming right out of those accounts of night class. So that the longer period of time my class has our funds, I hope that we wouldn't delay payment to any contractor in order to make more money. But something I might think about. But contractors expect their funds as soon as the work is completed. That's how it works. So there was earlier mention that in another communication that we might kind of recuperate all the money that we had to come up with. And I was trying to calculate how that would be possible. I understand we could get a good deal of it back, but certainly not all of that. But I personally, my last name, I personally don't think that I have done, and I've done quite a bit of research into my class. I've talked to other school districts. I don't think I've done my due diligence on them quite yet. So I'd like to know what time frame that you want to know when we would approve to put larger funds into an account with those folks. We have an account established with them yet.
We are waiting for the board's resolution to
Okay.
set that up.
But it's on the agenda. The resolution
Right,
is
I
an
see.
action item. Now, in looking at it, there's no cap or anything else. So, and if the bond is really probably the biggest chunk, the other thing you had mentioned might be the property taxes. So as of the end of October, we'll have most of the property taxes that come in. The question is, how comfortable is the board using the property taxes to get the interest? Now, the other thing, so that's my first question, and the Fed is talking about potentially lowering it. So any projection was based on the current rates, and it's calculated daily, so as soon as the rates change, it's gonna go down and we won't get as much. So I just wanna set expectations.
Yes, I think that what we want to make sure that we are comfortable in doing, because there's not a cap on that resolution, is having the board feel comfortable enough for us to be putting money into non-class so that we can start to gain the interest rates.
I'm comfortable with the capital project. I'd like, if that's 8 million or something, I think that's a big chunk of change for baby steps. I'm not comfortable putting property taxes in at the same time. I'm just being overly cautious. It's sort of like, yes, I will walk away from, I think one of the numbers that was provided said $10 million in was netting $44,000. That was the number I looked at. I looked at what was the base for that calculation. Until I feel comfortable, I'm willing to walk away from that because I don't want to risk public money. It is T-bills. If something were to happen and you had a run, it's basically, there's no run on the bank, right? But if T-bills become a little illiquid and everyone wants to pull their money out at the same time, they're going to freeze the accounts and they're not going to let everyone pull the money out. So you can only gain the interest on the funds where you have a little bit more leeway. And because of the way the bonding is coming, and the question would be, how much is unencumbered that is available, that hasn't been paid to the contractors, that is still available? That to me would be, we're not going to need to necessarily use it until we start the next construction, which is probably going to be in May, June or so. So we have leeway that, I don't know, if the world were to end, then none of us need to worry about it because the world has ended. But we have flexibility, we have some time for that. I don't know.
No, I agree with that. If Todd and Mike can calculate time right now, right? Place and time, and today is it. Work that has been done, that's encumbered funds. So if we could back that out as soon as we get bond funds, and then and then maybe even have a cushion built around that and invest those. But I have no fear of the investment tool with NICLAS. If you looked at the website, Jay, it is just bonds, and they bought on a daily basis, so they're constantly coming due and being repurchased. So it's a typical staircase approach. But as far as, that's a great example, the tax money, of why we want to communicate with other schools and see if that's something that they do. And I certainly would be willing to contact some of those schools, and I will anyway, because I'll feel comfortable with my vote.
So we all in agreement that for the capital monies, that yes, that can be put in with NICLAS, and would like a little bit more time to think about the property taxes. I mean, it won't be collected until October, so we still have a little bit of time for that.
Is there any kind of review process built into our proposition for board review? Are we going to know funds going in and out? Is that going to be reported?
Yes.
I think within the financials, it will be reported.
They provide a collateral report, and it will show all of the investments and the funds that they're in. I've seen that report.
And I do want to give credit to Melanie Lashner, who's kind of helped bring us here because she's used it before. She has done a lot of work with getting some of the information for us from the Office of State Comptrollers and some of the other school districts and their comptrollers' audits and finding how school districts have benefited by doing this. So I can get that stuff out to you as well. But Melanie's really done a lot of legwork on this to kind of help broaden our understanding of what this could mean for the district.
She's used it before
Yep.
with Petzl.
During a previous meeting, Todd had mentioned that with not only they approached the local banks and basically negotiated an interest rate. Is there any interest in, not to use that word in a different sense, but is there any interest from the banks to do the following with our capital money?
I would have to double check on that to see if I know that they are interested in some of that. I'm not sure about the
That
capital money.
volume of money,
Yep.
maybe.
They may not give us that same rate.
So then, because it is on as an action item, are we comfortable proceeding with it?
I am. From what I understand and what I've read and so forth, I mean, in their material, they even say, and I'm reading and paraphrasing what I'm reading here, that when you invest with NICLAS, you have access to your funds on any business day. You just must provide 24-hour notice, and then you get it. So it's really only tied up for 24 hours, and then you pull it out. You don't get as much interest, but it is liquid by the day.
I'm okay. Also, I think we should, with the capital funds and with the understanding reading, there's no penalties or anything, transaction fees, that type of thing to shift the money. So with that, it minimizes the risk. However, I think we do need to have more information with the property taxes, with the school taxes for the community. So I'm not saying to put a cap on it, but I think for that segment of it, it would be nice to get some more information and to find out what other school districts are doing and if they have, what the success rate was. And then as David mentioned, perhaps the local banks might shift a little bit if we incentivize to, not saying they would match, but maybe they would be a little more aggressive to keep it local and therefore, support
people have been with us in the past, so.
So I generally agree. I mean, I think my preference would probably be not to use all the capital project money, but if the consensus is that that's a reasonable approach, that's fine. I agree about not proceeding with other funds now. And whether it's changed the resolution or not, I don't know, but I would say there shouldn't be further investment beyond that initially. But I think we could treat that as kind of like the baby step, the learning step. Say 6 months or some period, then reevaluate, make a further decision about whether to expand in my class. But I think that that should, at a minimum, be, there should be a further investment without a report to the board before it happens. But I would say that we should, I prefer, after a certain period of time, again, maybe 6 months, that there's a evaluation of how it's been with capital funding, and should we expand the investment there. In other words, put a cap on it initially, but that's more just an interim period to get some experience to make sure it's working as expected. That'd be my preference. And I don't think there's urgency in the sense that although this is a good opportunity, I think, to earn a better interest rate than we can, like a better interest rate with low risk than we can with other vehicles, it's not so much money that I think we need to really rush to try to capitalize on it, no pun intended. But, you know, as we said, $10 million sitting there for a full 1 year would get us about $44,000. That's a nice chunk of change to have, but that's not a game changer. So I don't think we need to feel urgency to get as much money as we can into there as soon as possible to capture that, because to me it's just not a compelling enough amount to do that instead of taking a smaller step initially.
I just want to correct that, that's 44,000 per month.
Yeah, it's per month, so multiply that by 12.
At least according to the paper here.
Right.
Well, that is different.
So, you know, it is very tricky, but that also assumes that the interest rate does not change.
Understand that if the interest rate changes and that return goes down, even if that were to cut in half, I mean, so taking back a chunk of what I said, because clearly the amount is very different. But still, I think it's worth being somewhat cautious, you know, using a more limited amount of funds, like saying initially just the capital project money, than just being open-ended to begin with, to make sure everything is working as expected and, you know, have some reevaluation after a short amount of time, instead of being somewhat less cautious and just being too focused on the amount of money we can potentially earn through the interest.
Okay, mine is very short. I'm comfortable with the capital money. I'm not comfortable yet with the tax money.
Dave, did you want to add anything, or you're good?
Just who drafted this resolution? Did it come from?
Jeff, I believe.
Did
It
he?
came from my class, and then Jeff took a look at it.
There's only one part, and maybe more learned people sitting at this table than I. On the third paragraph, it mentions that we are using available investment funds. With what we're talking about, are they considered investment funds? I guess traditionally, if we put a capital project bond receipts into any kind of bank, they might be considered investment funds. I just want to make sure.
But I think the question is before they, I don't know the answer, but I think it's a good question.
I'm sorry, Jay. Did you say Jay?
So I think it's a good question.
So do you want a tighter definition of investment funds?
It might be just, it might be simple as changing investment to investable would change the meaning.
What number is, I can't find it.
I'm looking at that under municipal cooperation resolution, the
Or,
resolution.
no, but what number is it?
It is on the
7.1.
third, it is on the third paragraph, whereas.
Yeah.
7.
No, I'm sorry, second paragraph, whereas.
Subject, 7 point, give me the number, I can't,
Oh, it's under discussion, he's looking under the.
oh, okay, I'm sorry.
6.4.
Yeah,
There are 4 attached documents, we're just looking at the resolution.
got it, all right, I'm gonna bring it up.
Which is a smidge different than what's on the, in that listen, under the action items, because we didn't have it just be Todd, which is what this one says. I realize I didn't correct it with the second one, which is the superintendent and Todd.
Which would you like me to look at?
Actually, the one in, and it's only
Action?
the add, the names is the one in the action items, which is 7.25.
Thank you.
So close the 1 and 6.
7.25, okay. And this one seems tighter, whereas the Greenville Central School District wishes to invest portions of its available investment funds in cooperation with other corporations and or districts pursuant to the NICLAS municipal. So it's invest portions of its available. Does that work for you, Dave?
That language is the same in both versions.
It is.
Yeah, the only thing,
Okay.
the only difference between the two is adding the superintendent and the assistant superintendent, not just solely.
If you strike the word investment and you just say funds, you're looking to tighten it? We can go back to
Well, that
Jeff.
broadens it.
Right. But it,
No,
well,
I'm
it
not,
is
I'm not looking,
portions.
I'm looking for a definition of what we can use. And I don't, it may be nothing. But if a question was asked, did we invest appropriate funds? We've now classified what funds we're supposed to be using for this vehicle.
So are you, I'm trying to understand, am I hearing you want to change it to say wishes to invest portions of its available funds from corporation, other corporations and so forth? I mean, is it, you want to make it so that we're not trying to specify a fund?
Well, to me,
Because we don't, our funds are like the general fund and so forth. I don't think we have an investment fund.
And again, I think what
you don't
this
think we have
resolution
invested
just
funds?
does.
We have funds invested, but I don't think we have a fund called investment.
Oh, either way, then why is it in this resolution?
That's, I'm agreeing with you. I'm wondering if it should say available funds.
Right, I'm fine with that.
So you feel like it's limiting the funds we can put in, is that your issue?
No,
Oh,
The word investment.
okay.
It's defining it.
Right, it's not,
Doesn't exist.
I don't know if it's defined as we do.
You don't want it to be as broad.
I think investable funds to put it on a personal level, Jim. You know, I've invested funds, I have funds I buy dog food with, you know, and I have funds that I buy gas with, so that's what I'm thinking of. Investable funds. If the school doesn't have an item like that, then they should be just
Funds.
called funds.
So I'm hearing correctly, eliminate investment.
It's just a suggestion from me. I'm pretty sure, I'm sorry I brought it up.
What we could do is make a motion to strike the word investment in the action item, and then, once that's taken, then make motion to then approve the resolution.
Amended resolution.
Yeah. So we could do it as a two-step when it's an action item, if people are comfortable with that.
Greenville two-step?
Right,
Very
that's
well
when we
Tuesday.
finally get to 7.25.
Yes,
We're still on 6, something.
we're still in discussion.
So
All right,
I
then
have,
Mike.
I'm sorry, I do,
Go,
I'll try to be
go for
brief.
it, Jay.
To my question of, are we, if there's, what I'm hearing is consensus to move forward with the capital funds now, but not comfort with using other funds. The resolution is wide open, we can use any funds. We could either modify the resolution, reflect the discussion, or we could just have something off the resolution. I'd like to have an answer as to how we're going to handle that. In other words, if there's a consensus that we should be limited in the funds we used initially, that's not reflected in the resolution, so how do we capture that? Is it adequate to just say
Well, we
that?
can tell Mike, this is kind of, we've given you permission for this, this, and this, it's being recorded. Would that, are you comfortable with that?
Yeah, I think so, but just I want to
Yeah.
take it from like being a discussion to having something actual, like a decision, in terms of what we're going to do and how that's going to happen.
Right.
So should have stated it that way.
So the broad resolution that will be acted upon later in this meeting is just that, it's a broad resolution. What you guys decide as to what goes into those, into the non-class is based on conversations that don't have to be tied to that resolution. So what I'm hearing is capital project, I'm hearing no to taxes, and we kind of brushed aside some of the smaller ones, food service, student activities, scholarships. We're recommending those because they're not high-end numbers, but they are a good test for us to see what kind of money we're going to be getting on those. It will prolong the life of scholarships, student activities, food service. So that's what we would recommend from the district office and business office. Those three accounts, capital project.
I'm fine with the smaller accounts, including them into the night class.
I'm good.
Thank you.
All right, so moving on to updated policies, we have a second reading for two of our policies. We have 6410, the meal charge and prohibition against meal shaming policy, and policy 5260, homebound instruction. So the second reading of it, and then the committee had reviewed 4 other policies, but no updates were needed for those. Okay. And then now I'm going to move this on to an athletic swim opportunity. And Denise, if you could join us and tell us everyone about this exciting opportunity, please.
Hi, everyone. It's good to see you guys. So I was approached in actually late March by Ravina Koymans Selkirk, and I'm going to just refer to them as RCS, so I don't have to say that every time, about possibly doing girls swim and boys swim and doing a merger with them. They also approached Cooksaki Athens, and I believe there are students within our district, Cooksaki's district, that take part in a swim club that they have at RCS. So RCS's swim program, their numbers are down. I think they have 8 to 10 kids on their team. And as an athletic director in other school districts where we have swim programs, they can have 30, 40 kids on a swim program. So, it's really to kind of bolster up the swim program at RCS so that they can keep that alive and also offer opportunities to our students as well. Right now, because it was late March, we couldn't together before an April 1st deadline for girls swim, which is in the fall. And so right now, the merger deadline is September 1st for boys swim, which is in the winter season. So that's the reason that I'm here. In talking with their athletic director, they're not asking us for any cost at this point. And because they've budgeted for this for years, she doesn't anticipate there being a cost to it. So the natural cost would be transportation, like coaching staff members, officials. The swim season has about 16 games, so 8 of them would be home and 8 would be away. So you're looking at officials for 8 home meets. And then uniforms, from the other program that I was the athletic director for, we actually had a uniform budget because uniforms are not something that you want with the chlorine and so forth. They just break down, and it's, hygiene-wise, you don't want to wear somebody else's bathing suit. So it's an annual cost. And the district usually, I don't know how they do that at RCS. I didn't get an opportunity to ask her about that. But no cost to our district right now. We would have to do, and I shared with Mr. Bennett, like, a sample contract with parents. This is, I think you guys all know we're having major transportation issues. So it would, if the families want to participate in this, then there would be an agreement that they would transport their children to those events. I did ask their AD about practice times because I don't want to be pulling our kids out of school early every single day. And if they could be adjusted, and she seemed to think that that would be okay. But whenever you have a pool in a district, there's always evening events and things for kids. So they're looking into that. Right now, I believe we have 2 students that participate in the boys swim club, and that's from one family. That family they do know that transportation would not be provided. There's the other possibility that the buses leave between 2:30 and 3 o'clock for them to go to their meets. So there's a possibility that they would have to get out of school early, get onto one of those buses, or the family could transport them right to the event, which normally start around, I would assume 4:30. So that's where we're at with this. So if you have some questions, I would say this too. Just remember that mergers are annual, right? So they're a yearly basis. So if it didn't work out, then you don't have to participate in it again. If it became cost prohibitive, then you don't have to participate in it again. It's a good opportunity for kids that really are interested in those types of activities. Swim is a wonderful activity for kids to engage in.
Denise, is there any kind of insurance implication for our district?
So I was thinking about that as before this presentation. For our students that are participating over there, we would still be like their secondary health insurance. So they would have to still sign up for family ID and so forth for us. That paperwork would then be sent over to them because that's from our school district. I don't know. I don't have the answers to insurance, additional insurance. That's something we have to look into. Other questions?
So you said that the merger, it's an annual decision. If we were to do it, there's no obligation next year.
Right, right. So like if they said, okay, we want half of all these things and then we can't provide that, then, we don't have to participate again. But they're not, she really said to me that I'm not looking to, they already have it built into their budget.
When did you say you needed a decision by?
April 1st is the deadline, so we need a board approval.
September 1st.
Or September 1st.
So the September 1st, you need the board approval for the paperwork. If there are other questions or other things that come up between now and the time that it starts, we can still back out.
We can withdraw.
Okay, so really it's getting this officially into section 2 to make it an official merger by September 1. But there are some questions.
They need to have that on our board minutes, that it's been approved,
Gotcha.
the merger has been approved.
How can we approve it before September first?
We'd have to do
We
it
do it
tonight.
tonight.
Oh, okay.
Somebody would just have to make a motion.
And September 1st is for the boys, however, does that carry over for April 1st for next year if continuation you want to do for the girls, I guess, is a fall?
Then you would do that, I would bring that to the March board meeting.
Okay, so
Right.
this is just for the boys.
This is just for the boys. Every season has a cutoff date for mergers.
And
And that's varsity only too, just so you guys know that, so that's high school students.
another question, I know you said you had 2 boys from the same family. Do you have a litmus test as far as other interest
I
at this
haven't
point,
had
or
this
not
opportunity
yet?
really, because if I put something out right now, kids are not looking at emails, and most of the time they don't check their emails anyway, even when you put something out during the school year, but, you know, you really need to get kids back to, because we could do a survey to see if people would be, you know, interested in it. However, are they gonna be able to transport?
Okay.
That might limit the opportunities for kids.
So I'm just looking for clarification. What's being proposed is that the boys could go in the spring, and there would be no
Winter.
pardon me?
Boys go in the winter.
Winter. And that there would be no transportation costs to the school district. It would always be, right now, currently provided by parents.
Yes, by the families. Yep.
And the swimsuit question is just a question we don't know.
Right. So as far as the family goes, yes, the transportation could be a swimsuit, but I'm assuming we have that, but I don't want to assume.
So Denise, you need then at this meeting approval from the board to merge for the boys swim.
Yes,
Okay. With RCS.
yes.
Okay.
And potentially consent. But, you know,
So the way that we could handle it is we can make a motion, add 7.28 to the agenda for approval.
to approve a boys swim merger for the winter of 2024-25.
One more question, clarification. I think you answered it, but I just want to be positive. If we approve that motion and then find out that we would need some additional insurance, or the insurance price would go up to a point that we thought was prohibitive, either way, we can still
You
essentially
can
undo the
withdraw up
merger,
until the
withdraw.
point that the season starts,
When is that?
which is November, mid-November.
And I assume the insurance question can be answered well before then?
Yep.
Is that something you can come to? Well, never mind. Okay. Yes. Thanks, Mike.
Denise, one question, is the schedule for competitions complete? Have you seen it?
I have not seen it, but it is.
Okay, so you'll provide it to the parent, the prospective parent, because I'm just wondering, I'm fine with this. It's a great opportunity, and I'm aware of the fact that Cooksaki has done it in the past. But I want to make sure that the parents know what they would be up against or committing to as far as, because I don't know of many schools that have a pool, so I imagine they're traveling quite a distance.
And if you have any other questions, you know, that I can try to work out for you, then definitely go ahead and email me those. And I can talk to their athletic director about that, or I can talk to their school superintendent as well.
Thank you for doing the legwork.
Welcome.
All right, thank you, Denise. So now I'm going to move us on to the action items. In doing the action items, what I'd like to do then is propose the 2 changes that we just talked about. So I would need, let me get them. There. Let's see, 7.28. motion to,
Amend the
You're-
resolution.
right, so one is going to be to amend the resolution of 7.25 to remove the word investment in the second paragraph, whereby it would read, whereas the Greenville Central School District wishes to invest portions of its available funds in cooperation with other corporations and/or districts pursuant to the NICLAS Municipal Cooperation Agreement amended and restated as of August 1st, 2023, would be one. And the second thing would be to add 7.28, which would be a motion to approve the merger for the boys swim for winter for the 24-25 school year, and it's a merger with RCS. So those are the two changes that I need a motion for. Did I say it correctly?
Well, we kind of have to do them in
You have to
two
do
Yeah,
it
different
separately?
things,
All right.
so.
All right, so let's do the first one.
Yeah,
Do I have to do it in order then, or can I do it at the beginning to then?
We probably should wait till we get
Fine.
there,
Yeah,
but
you can amend.
Then let's wait.
Make a motion to amend.
I thought you were trying to combine things to make it go
Well.
quicker.
I was.
Okay.
All right, so then on the action items, I need, let's see, I need a motion to approve the minutes of the, I'm gonna combine several minutes, July 8th, 2024 reorganizational meeting, the July 8th business meeting, the July 29th business workshop, the August 5th business meeting. So it is 7.1 to 7.4.
May I have Angela and Eric?
Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
If I could have a motion to accept the Committee on Special Education recommendations.
Angela and Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
If I could have a motion to approve the finance reports for the month ending June 30th, 2024, as well as July 31st, 2024.
Eric and Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the personnel agenda.
Angela and Jay?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Need a motion to approve the district safety plan for the 24-25 school year.
Eric and Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to establish the tax warrant for the 24-25 school year.
Eric? Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to accept the 24-25 bus routes.
Angela? Jay?
Any discussion? We still need bus drivers. Spread the word. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need a motion to approve the breakfast and lunch rates for adults as of September 1st, 2024, per the New York State Child Nutrition Management System.
Eric and Angela?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to appoint the following individuals to serve on the Board of Voter Registration for the 24-25 school year: Judith Elliott Brown, Sarah Statham, Eileen Bowden, Donna Kropp, Susan Cunningham, Kelly Dowds, and Pat Macco as an alternate.
Jim and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the Questar 3 initial service contract with the Greenville Central School District for the 24-25 school year.
Eric and Angela?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and Steve Zotner as the internal claims auditor for the 24-25 school year.
Eric and Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the preschool memorandum of agreement between the Greenville Central School District and the United Methodist Church, UMC Daycare Center for the 24-25 school year.
Jim and Angela?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and Four Winds Saratoga for the 24-25 school year.
Eric and Dave.
Any discussion?
Make you happy.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and LaSalle School for the 24-25 school year.
Dave. Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the contract between the Greenville Central School District and the Columbia Memorial Hospital for school physician services for the 24-25 school year.
Jim. Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve contract transportation extensions for special education routes for the 24-25 school year.
Eric and Angela.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Just looking to see if I can combine 7.20 and 7.21.
I think so.
Coxsackie Transport, they're both Coxsackie Transport, right?
And they're both transportation.
And transportation, and, okay, so I'm going to combine 7.20 and 7.21. I need a motion to approve the resolution allowing the Greenville Central School District to piggyback off of an originating contract between Catskill Central School District and Coxsackie Transport to transport a Greenville student to the DeVroe during the 24-25 school year, as well as to award the contract transportation bid to Coxsackie Transport for the 24-25 school year to transport students to the Crossroads Center for Children in Oak Hill School.
Angela. Eric.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the resolution to amend the emergency action resolution adopted on May 2nd, 2024 to provide for expenditures not to exceed $450,000.
Eric. Need a second? Jim.
Any discussion?
Just have a question.
Go ahead.
So I'm not seeing the contract now, but this is the asbestos abatement for the crawl space, right? And we'd said that, I mean, I understand the work is now done, but we said earlier that the remaining work to be done should be at a not to exceed the $450,000. I think I saw the change order. I just want to make sure I'm clear on where that language was captured.
So the change order for the electrician?
No, for the crawl space, which is the next item.
7.22, it's not to exceed 450.
Oh, right,
you
so
were
it's
at-
7.23, you're right. I see, so we're just amending the resolution here, but the next step is to,
Correct, because we were at the 200, now we needed to go up to the 250, or go up by 250 to the 450.
okay,
So we need to do that, and then the second part, does that make sense?
it does, yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
any other questions? No, better to clarify it. All in favor?
Aye.
No.
And Angela, is that a no?
No,
Wait, just talk, use the microphone.
Yeah. So 5-1. I just want to make sure I got everybody. Okay.
Okay. I need a motion, 7.23. I need a motion to approve the change order AC 001 for emergency crawl space abatement at Scott M. Ellis Elementary School in the amount of $305,555.78.
Eric, need a second? Dave?
Any discussion?
This is where the question.
Okay.
So the attached agreement says, contract is changed as follows, there's a parenthetical in the first line, amount authorized shall be maximum allowable to complete full necessary work scope per monitor's direction, without further contract changes. I just want to confirm, it seems clear, but that is the not to exceed language that we requested, right? Okay. Just note, Mike was nodding in agreement, so thank you, Mike.
Any other questions? All in favor? I need a motion to approve the change order EC-CO-01 for the 2022 Capital Involvement Project, Improvement Project, SCD number 20-3022, in the amount of $31,793.43.
Eric and Angela?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so 7.25, so this is the one that we need a motion to strike the word investment from the current wording.
I'll make a motion to amend the resolution as written to strike the word investment, paragraph 2.
Could I have a second for that? Any discussion related to changing the wording? All in favor of changing the wording?
Okay.
Aye.
First.
Okay. So now I need a motion to approve the municipal cooperation resolution NICLAS with the new wording.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended resolution to invest with NICLAS.
So Dave, and I need a second. Eric?
Any discussion?
Question, earlier we were talking about the smaller accounts in addition to the capital fund. I remember food services, what were the others? I didn't catch those.
Scholarships
Scholarships.
and then student activities.
Okay, thanks.
Jay, if you remember when the discussion with the presentation, they said we could have an account related to the school, right, but we could have different funds in that account. So if you wanted to have Todd or whomever manages it, parse those out, that'd be a possibility, I think. Might be
I
required
don't have an
anyway.
opinion on that.
Right.
I just wanted to make sure I was clear on which accounts we were approving initially.
And I have one question, and it's just, I guess, more curiosity than anything else. Pursuant to the night class, municipal cooperation agreement amended and restated as of August 1st, 2023.
It should be 24.
Well, that was going to be my question. Did they give us a new one, or were we using last year's one?
What's in the resolution? So did they amend their agreement as of that date?
Is that the item attached to the action item?
Right, we're wondering if it's last year's agreement or this year's agreement, please. Should we be doing this too?
But we didn't do anything last year, so that's where I'm confused about the date.
No, their agreement. I mean, if that's what we're gonna go to, that's fine. I just,
It's in their agreement, so the second page of their long,
Agreement.
2024-4, it's on their second page, amended and restated as of August 1st, 2023.
okay.
That's their wording.
I'm good.
So then we're leaving it as stated, August 1st, 2023, correct?
That's what their document says, yes.
Okay. Do we think it's a typo?
It's in their document.
They could still have a typo.
Well, they may be updating it in August now too, but
Right.
this is what we're working on.
Fine, okay.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I need a motion to approve the overnight field trip to to the FFA National Convention in Indianapolis in October.
Dave and Eric?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to approve the declaration of surplus items.
Jay and Jim?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So now I need a motion to add 7.28, which would be an action item, and it would be have the Board of Ed approve a merger with RCS School for boys swim for the winter 24-25 school year.
Slow down. Motion to approve the merger with RCS School.
RCS School for the boys swim
That's varsity.
varsity, thank you. Boys varsity swim. For the winter season in the 24-25 school year.
24-25 winter season.
School year. With some, Jay?
I'll make that motion.
Then I'll second.
Okay.
All right, so we have.
And you
Jay
just,
and Eric.
are you good, Daphne?
Yeah.
All right, so any discussion about adding 7.28 as an item to the agenda?
Seems like the right thing to do.
Good, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now, I need a motion to approve the merger with RCS for the boys varsity swim for the winter 24-25 school year. How was that? Need a first, now we need a second.
We had, was it Eric and
Jim.
Angela?
Any discussion related to this proposed merger? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. I knew I'd get through it. All right, that's it for all the action items. Moving on to topics for future meeting. Do we have any items that people would like to talk about for future meeting? I had one. So the governor has been doing a tour, for lack of a better term, discussing cell phone usage in schools. I would be very curious to see kind of timing, or better understand, I think, timing of when the governor is going to summarize, possibly have action items coming out of that tour. I think New York City just went cell phone free, and there are multiple districts around New York State. The question, and I think the reason that the governor is doing it, is to have more of a unified force. So I think it is in the board's interest to at least be aware of what's going on, as this may be coming down the pike. And if so, have the public aware that this may come from the governor. Okay, so I don't think there's any rush necessarily, but I think it's something we should put on our radar. I'd be curious about that. Anything else that people have? All right, then just a couple of reminders. We have the September 9th tour of facilities. It will begin in the Ellis Cafeteria at 6 p.m. Please mark your calendars. Our next board meeting is September 16th, right here. And then after that, we have the October 7th board meeting at 6 p.m. Okay, and finally, our closing open forum. Please note the same guidelines apply as stated during the first open forum. Is there anyone that would like to speak? Do we? Just come up to the podium, please state your name, and turn on the microphone, not so much for us, but it's more for the recording. Welcome.
Hello.
Okay.
I had reached out on behalf of the town about the Hudson River Valley Freeway grant that the town was applying for. And it's
timing on this? Because I believe it's by the end of the month, if that's correct?
The grant is due on September 6th.
For this, and so we've done it in the past whereby we're not committing to anything, but basically the grant and the procedure ultimately benefits the community and so forth. So it's really just a letter stating that, yes, we believe you are legit, we have done this in the past and so forth. I don't see any issues with providing the letter. But I did ask you to come. It's been a long meeting, sorry. Just to kind of, if anyone had any questions, and so that people would be aware that this is something that's going on with the town of Greenville. Ask away.
Mary Carney.
Thank you.
No questions? Is everyone comfortable providing a letter?
Yes.
Okay. Wonderful. If you want to follow up, then can we look at, I think, the letter that we did the last time?
I think you emailed us.
Yeah, I provided a sample.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect, wonderful.
Thank you.
All right, if I could have a motion to adjourn the meeting then.
I
I saw that face.
That's it.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thank